this session overseas. Thanks to Ambedkar International Center and the team of BAWS for organizing this talk on Mahatma Phule, Sayajirao Gaikwad, and Babasaheb Ambedkar, titled "The Tale of Mahatma, Maharaja, and a Mahamanav." So thanks also once again thanks to AIC for giving me this opportunity to host the session as a moderator. And so I mean, such a topic needs quite curiosity to go into the lives of these great men and finding this interconnection among them that only a man like Dr. SPVA from SPVA we can expect. So let me take the opportunity to introduce Dr. SPVA first. Most of you might have seen Dr. SPVA's last session, where he brilliantly explained the summary of almost all books written by Babasaheb Ambedkar. The session was received very well by the listeners, and the last time I checked it on the YouTube, the video has crossed around 21K viewers. I mean, the session like 1 hour. I mean, it has a lecture has 21K views. It's a very appreciating thing for us and motivating to us. And continuing the tradition forward, the BAWS team and Dr. Ambedkar International Center are proud to bring this session. Some of you may have already know this, that Dr. Sairam has actually recreated the lost library of Mahatma Jotiba Phule. How many of us are aware that Jotiba Phule's library and his collection of books was sold to a scrap dealer in 1900s? I think Dr. SPVA will talk about this in his session. As a result, we are clueless about the books and literature read by Jyotiba Phule. But Dr. Sairam has recreated the lost library and prepared a list of all books read by Jyotiba through intense archival research. And he also went to Pune for his research and has been to many places. Uh, in this session, Dr. SPVA will explore the fascinating links that connect Mahatma Jotiba Phule, Sayajirao Gaikwad, and Babasaheb Ambedkar. The most interesting part is Mahatma Phule was one of the was one of the guru of Babasaheb Ambedkar. So it's very interesting for us to know that how Mahatma Jotiba Phule and Sayajirao Gaikwad are connected. I mean, I am interested in this plot. And the information that Dr. Sairam is going to share in the presentation is not found in any of the biographies written on Babasaheb Ambedkar. So this is something unique which we are going to learn today. And this presentation is the fruit of more than 7 years of his intense and meticulous research. This is not this would be a session of 1 hour, but it takes many years for him to go through all the literature, read all the books diligently. So we are extremely happy to have Dr. SPVA Sairam with us today to share his wonderful insights. Over to you, Sairam Bhai.
Thank you so much, Ritesh Bhai, for that amazing introduction. And I think I'm audible, right?
Perfectly. You're audible
Amazing,
and
amazing.
visible. Perfectly.
Okay, super. So at the very outset, I'd like to thank Sandeep Bhai, Prashant Bhai, Charan Sir, the team of BAWS.in and Dr. Ambedkar International Center for giving me this wonderful opportunity to present this session. And I'd also like to thank each and everyone for taking your time and attending this session. It means a lot to me. So without any further delay, I'll start the presentation. So the title of our talk is The Tale of Mahatma, Maharaja, and a Mahamanav, exploring the fascinating links that connect Mahatma Jotiba Phule, Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad, and Babasaheb Ambedkar. And this is presented by me, Dr. Sairam. So in this presentation, we're going to cover broadly 4 themes. Firstly, we'll see the relationship between Mahatma Phule and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. Secondly, we'll see the connections between Dr. Ambedkar and Mahatma Phule. Thirdly, we'll explore the bond between Dr. Ambedkar and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. And finally, we'll see the most important thing, that is the tireless efforts made by Dr. Ambedkar to revive the legacy of Mahatma Jotiba Phule and also Savitrimai Phule. On November 28, 1870, Maharaja Khanderao, the Emperor of Baroda, passed away peacefully in his sleep. His untimely death had created a situation of chaos in the state of Baroda. With the death of Maharaja, naturally, the question of who should be the next king of Baroda assumed a very important significance. On one hand, you have Maharaja Gaikwad, who was the brother of late Maharaja Khanderao, who proclaimed that he should be made the king, given the fact that his brother had no son. On the other hand, you have Maharani Janmabai, who was the wife of late Maharaja Khanderao, who contended that by the time her husband passed away, she was already pregnant. Therefore, a soon to be born child should be declared as the king. This led to an intense conflict between Malharrao Gaikwad on one hand and Maharani Janmabai on the other hand. Naturally, the British government was confused, and after giving a very serious thought, they directed that the child's birth should be awaited first, and in the meanwhile, the power should be given to Malharrao's hand temporarily until it should be seen whether a boy or a girl has arrived. In these circumstances of chaos and uncertainty, on July 5th, 1871, Maharani Janmabai gave birth to a girl called as Tarabai. And this is the picture of the young Tarabai, the princess. Based on the rules of the time, a girl or a woman could not be made a king. Naturally, the British government enabled Malharrao Gaikwad to ascend the throne of Baroda. So this is the original picture taken, when Malharrao Gaikwad ascended the throne of Baroda. But in a very short span, Malharrao Gaikwad, the Maharaja, had drawn the wrath of both the masses and the British government due to his maladministration. The entire standards of administration of the Baroda state kept on deteriorating. So it created a situation of alarm in the state of Baroda. The standard of administration kept on deteriorating so much so that Mr. Lewis Pelly was shocked to note that while the revenue was 94 lakhs, the expenditure had been no less than 171 lakhs, almost double. And that the cultivating classes, the normal people in the Baroda state, are discontent to an unusual degree. Naturally, British government is scared because there is this resistance from the people because of this maladministration of Maharaja, and they decided to do something. Firstly, they gave an opportunity to Maharaja to reform the state. So, owing to the pressure from the government, Maharaja tried to reform the state by bringing in Dadabhai Naoroji. We heard about his name, his theories of economic drain and all. So he was actually invited to the Baroda Palace to reform the state, to help in continuing the progress. But nothing substantial has happened. As the situation remained hopeless, the government of Bombay received the consent from the then Governor General Northbrook to depose Malharrao from the throne, that is, to remove him from the throne. And this is the picture of Governor General Northbrook. So on 19th April 1875, Malharrao was removed from the throne of Baroda and was taken away under the escort to Madras. You might be wondering why I'm telling this story, but you'll very soon understand it. Now, the return of chaos once again. With the removal of Malharrao Gaikwad from the throne of Baroda, the question of who should be the next king or the new king has popped up once again. In this juncture, Maharani Janmabai, she went to the British government and the British officials and reminded them the fact that when her husband was alive, he was given the right to adopt any person. So she said, given the fact that my husband is no more, why not transfer the right to me so that I can adopt any person and make him a king? The British government gave the consent, and the search for the new prince has commenced. We'll just see the brief recap of whatever happened so far. So we saw that Maharaja Khanderao passed away, and then there was a conflict between his brother and his wife, and Maharani gave birth to a daughter called Darabai. So naturally, Malharrao was made the king. And we saw that he could not manage the administration, which led the British government to depose him or to remove him from the throne. And now the search for a new prince has commenced. As there are no suitable young males in the Baroda royal family, a commission consisting of Colonel Etheridge and Mr. Elliot was formed to trace the extending family lineage of Baroda royal family and to find if there are any suitable and legitimate descendants. And the British government, with the help of the commission, has prepared this very extensive map. Actually, the map is very extensive, but I have just included only the relevant portion. As you can see, this is Khanderao. the Maharaja who passed away, and there's Malhar Rao, the king who was deposed or removed from the throne. Now, after a detailed map is prepared, the commission found that there are only four boys who can claim the throne of Baroda, the young boys. And those four boys are Anand Rao, Gopal Rao, Sampat Rao, and Dadasaheb. Who will become the next king? This is the most important question at the time. On one fine day, a band of police appeared in the village of Kavlana, which is in the Nashik district, and carried off these three boys chosen, Dadasaheb, Gopal Rao, and Sampat Rao, to the Baroda palace. The responsibility for the fateful choice fell upon the Maharani. It is now the Maharani who should decide whom she should pick from these three boys and declare as the king. It's a very tough choice for her. For all the three boys assembled in the palace, Maharani decided to adopt Gopal Rao. What could be the reasons? It is generally believed that the young Gopal Rao's response to the questions of Maharani has won him the throne. When Gopal Rao was asked why he had come, that 12-year-old boy answered, I've come to become the Maharaja. This is the picture of young Gopal Rao. It's a very rare image. You won't find it in any book. Maharani must have been impressed with the level of confidence displayed by this young boy. Imagine the context. This boy was born and brought up in an obscure village in Nashik district. He lived his life as a peasant for the first 12 years. Suddenly, one day, a band of police comes to his place, picks him up, and takes him to Baroda Palace. And then he faces Maharani of that Baroda state. And when she asked the question as to why you have come here, this 12-year-old boy said with full confidence that I've come here to become the Maharaja. Naturally, Maharani must have been impressed with the kind of confidence displayed by this 12-year-old young boy. Now, on the morning of 27th May of 1875, the young Gopal Rao was adopted by the Maharani. And this is the picture of young Gopal Rao, which we have just seen. After the coronation, this young Gopal Rao was bestowed with the title Sayajirao Gaikwad III. And this is how we recognize it. So this is the real backdrop of Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. Most of the biographies written on Babasaheb Ambedkar or Jotiba Phule begin directly with their friendship, but they do not tell you the story of how Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad actually became the king. So I hope this presentation fills that deficiency. So this is how the young Gopal Rao was born in an obscure village, went on to become the Maharaja of the Baroda state. These are all very unique pictures. And this is one of the fabulous paintings made by one of the British artists of the time, of the young Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. He's only 12 years at the time. So, as we can see, this Gopal Rao was adopted into the family of Maharaja Kanderao and was bestowed with the title Sayajirao Gaikwad III. Perhaps the happiest of all must be the young Tarabai, who has now found a brother. If the rules did not care about the sex of the successor, Tarabai would have been the queen, and Maharani Janmabai would have saved all the troubles of finding an able successor. There would have been no commission, no, sending of police to an obscure village to find the legitimate claimants and all. All these troubles would have been avoided. But that was the situation. After the coronation, the young Sayajirao underwent intense training under men like F.H. Eliot and Sir T. Madhavrao. And this is Sir T. Madhavrao. And after ascending the throne, Maharaja Sayajirao initiated numerous social and economic reforms to transform the state of Baroda, so much so that he came to be hailed as the architect of new order in Baroda state. In 1882, the stage was set for the meeting between the 19-year-old Maharaja and a great social radical in Pune. During the course of his visit, Maharaja had met the one and only Mahatma Jotiba Phule. He just waited for the music to finish. In the course of the discussion, the young Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad was totally convinced with the arguments advanced by Mahatma Jotiba Phule on the degraded state of Stri Shudrati Shudras. Sayajirao promised Jotiba that he would support his revolutionary activities. Thereafter, Maharaja started coming to Pune every year for a long stay, and whenever he came to Pune, Jotiba would meet him and highlight the responsibility of Maharaja to participate in the great social movement. And it is highly probable that Sayajirao Gaikwad would have also met Savitrimai in one of those meetings. And this is my sketch of Savitrimai. I know it is wrong to do self-promotion, but could not resist. Sorry for that. And Jyotiba had also written a series of letters from time to time requesting Maharaja to emancipate his Shudrati Shudra brethren. In one of the letters, Jyotiba Phule emotionally urged the Aryan Brahmins forbade the Shudras to take education, which was the root cause of their wretched condition. Thus, they degraded the Shudras to the meanest level of the beasts. Vast amounts of money are spent on the annuities paid to the idle butt priests out of the state treasury, which are thus depleted. Be it noted, the hard-working peasants fill the said exchequer with money earned by the sweat of their brows. Pairs of ceremonial shawls and other monetary gifts are granted by the government to these butt priests and their equally undeserving children for no better than notch boys. Then why does the government never give suitable awards or gifts to the ideal farmers for their skill in that field? I earnestly request Your Highness Sayajirao Maharaj to assume the responsibility of a foster father of these dumb million subjects. Everyone knows that opportunity knocks on our door but once. An opportunity, if lost once, may not come our way again. Jyotirao prays earnestly unto Sayajirao Maharaj of Baroda that he should take the fullest advantage of the golden opportunity now presented to him. It may not come his way again. So Jyotiba penned many such powerful and emotional letters to Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. And naturally, Maharaja was totally convinced with these appeal made by Mahatma Jotiba Phule. In 1884, Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad felt that the administrators and thinking people of Baroda should benefit from the vast wisdom of Jotiba Phule. Giving a concrete shape to these thoughts, Maharaja personally invited Jotiba to Baroda in 1884 and requested him to give lectures at his palace and other prominent places in the state of Baroda. During his stay at Baroda, Jotiba had actually narrated the entire book of Shetkarya Chasud, Cultivator's Whipcord, to Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. How many of us are aware of this fact? Speaking about the same, Jotiba recalled later and said, "It's a pleasure to record here that when I visited Baroda, His Highness Sriman Sayajirao Maharaj Gaikwad, Sena Ka Scale Samsher Bahadur, found time from his very tight and busy schedule of administrative work, had this book read out to him by me. With spontaneous joy and deep appreciation, he heard it very carefully to the end. His Highness accorded a warm welcome to me and extended his royal hospitality to me during my stay there. Not only that, but he also bestowed on me a handsome gift of money out of his innate generosity. I am much beholden to His Highness for all these acts of kindness and generosity." This is the bond of friendship between Jotiba Phule and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. Unfortunately, most of the biographies do not touch this aspect of their wonderful lives. And this is actually the original picture of the Baroda Conference Hall. And Jotiba Phule must have delivered his lectures in one of these magnificent conference halls at Baroda Palace in front of so many people and scholars of that era. Because Jotiba is the topmost scholar. And yes. In December 1885, Jotiba went to Baroda once again, but this time as one of the chief guests to attend the wedding of Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad with Maharani Chinmabai, the two. So this is the level of personal relationship these two great men shared. The bond between Mahatma Phule and Maharaja Sayajirao strengthened with every meeting, and the friendship continued till the death of Mahatma Jotiba Phule in 1890. 7 years later, Savitrimai too passed away while helping an untouchable boy who got affected with plague. We'll see this part at the end in a more detailed manner. Let's come to the second aspect of our presentation, exploring the connections between Dr. Ambedkar and Mahatma Phule. Of course, we don't have any direct link or connection between Mahatma Phule and Dr. Ambedkar because, as you know, Mahatma Phule passed away in 1890 and Babasaheb was born in 1891. So, but we do have some indirect links that connect these extraordinary men. And one link is this. This is the link or the indirect link one that connects Dr. Ambedkar to Jyotiba Phule via his family members. Firstly, we'll learn about Gopal Bua Valangakar. Secondly, we'll also see the relationship between Dr. Ambedkar's own father, Ramji Malaji Sakpal, with Mahatma Jotiba Phule. And the second indirect link explores the connection between Jyotiba Phule and Dr. Ambedkar through these common friends of Babasaheb Ambedkar. And we saw this connection already in our previous slides between Jyotiba and Sayajirao. In the coming slides, we'll see the connection between Dada Keluskar S.K. Bole with Mahatma. And of course, both Dada Keluskar and S.K. Bole were also good friends to Dr. Ambedkar's father, Ramji Maloji Sakpal. Let's see the connection between Ramji Maloji Sakpal and Mahatma Phule. According to Dr. Narendra Jadhav, who is a very prominent biographer of Babasaheb and extraordinary economist, he says that Babasaheb's father, Ramji Maloji Sakpal, was a great admirer of Mahatma Jotiba Phule. And there are some scholars like the late Hari Narke who assert that Dr. Ambedkar's father had actually met Mahatma Phule. I can't comment much on it because I've not read the original Marathi documents written by Hari Narke sir, but it is probable that Dr. Ambedkar's father might have met Jyotiba Phule, and we'll see the reason in the next slide. And now the link between Gopal Bua Valangakar, Mahatma Phule, and Dr. Ambedkar's father. Gopal Bua Valangakar was one of the preeminent leaders of the untouchable community from the Bombay province. As a member of the Mahar regiment, Gopal Bua used to meet Jyotiba regularly, and there are many occasions. This is a very interesting and fascinating detail. And there are many occasions where Jyotiba delivered lectures to the members of the Mahar regiment. He used to narrate the excerpts from his books like Gulamgiri, that is slavery, Shetkara Jasut, and many other things. He used to share his wisdom to the members of the Mahar regiment, and he used to inspire them to resist the injustice that is meted out to them. In 1893, when the British government banned the recruitment of Mahars to the army, it was this Gopal Bua Valangakar, who was Jyotiba's friend, who played a very important role in raising the protest against this treacherous decision of the British government. Dr. Ambedkar's father was also part of this protest against the British government. As Jyotiba Phule passed away in 1890, Gopal Bua Valangakar and others had approached Mahadev Govind Ranade to draft the petition. It is very interesting to note that Ramai was actually related to Gopal Bua Valangakar. So see these intricate connections. You have Gopal Bua Valangakar, who is a very close friend of Mahatma Phule, and the same Gopal Bua Valangakar is related to Ramai, the wife of Dr. Ambedkar. And as I said, he's also a very good friend of Dr. Ambedkar's father, Ramji Maloji Sakpal. So these are all the interesting connections that we often forget while discussing life of Babasaheb. Now we will see the link to Dada Keluskar, S.K. Bole, and Mahatma Phule. As is known, both Dada Keluskar, whose original name is Krishnaji Arjun Keluskar, and S.K. Bole, Sitaram Keshav Bole, were closely connected with the movement of Mahatma Jotiba Phule. In this juncture, I'd like to clarify a very interesting fact. It is commonly assumed that Dada Keluskar belongs to the Brahmin community, but he's not from Brahmin community. He's from Maratha community. People like Gail Omvidat ma'am believes and asserts that he's actually from Kundi community. So please do not believe these rumors on social media. So Dada Keluskar is from the non-Brahmin community. And of course, S.K. Bole sir, and he's from Bandari community, which are, Todi tappers. In Telugu states, they are also known by the name as Gauts. Yes. And these two people are very closely connected to Mahatma Phule. And in fact, it is from the letters and writings of Dada Keluskar that we get to see the fascinating details of Jyotiba's movement in the Bombay city from 1870. So he's also a part of, biographers who wrote few interesting details about Jyotiba Phule. That was their bond of relationship. Interestingly, both Dada Keluskar and S.K. Bole would later emerge as the closest associates of Young Bean. The felicitation ceremony of Young Bean. As we know, Young Bean was felicitated when he passed his fourth standard examination. It is extraordinary to know that both Dada Keluskar and S.K. Bole were close friends of Mahatma Phule, were present during this felicitation. And as we know, in the same ceremony, it was Dada Keluskar who gifted a copy of the life of Buddha to the young being, which inspired him a lot. Of course, we know the impact of this book on the life of Babasaheb. In fact, if you see Babasaheb Ambedkar's Buddha and his Dhamma, he has actually cited many references from this book. So you can understand the sort of impact this book had on the mind of Babasaheb, that even in 1956, when he was writing the book on Buddha and his Dhamma, he was actually quoting this book, which he received when he was in the fourth standard. And very interestingly, this book was published by Sayajirao Maharaj Gaikwad Oriental series. So all these things are closely connected, very intricately linked. And now we'll see the third part, exploring the connections between Dr. Ambedkar and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. On February 2nd, 1913, Ramji Maloji Sakwal, the great father of Babasaheb, who nurtured him with unfathomable love and wisdom, has passed away, leaving young Beam completely shattered. In this distressing context, our young Beam met Maharaja one day at the Malabar Hill Palace in Bombay to discuss his problems. In a sheer matter of coincidence, this was also the same time when Maharaja was thinking to send few students abroad for higher education so that these students can return to India and work in his Baroda state. It is not an exaggeration to state the conversation which we're going to see in the next slide between Maharaja and young Beam at Malabar Hill Palace is said to alter the course of history. It's an epoch-making event. During the conversation, Maharaja asked which subject would young Beam like to study, and young Beam replied, sociology, economics, especially public finance. And then Maharaja asked, what will you do by studying these subjects? And young Beam, who was only 22 years old, he said, the study of these subjects would give me clues for improving the depressed condition of my society, and I shall undertake the work of social reforms on those lines. So from the beginning itself, Dr. Ambedkar has this foundation to learn more and to utilize those wisdom, that knowledge, for the benefit of his society. This is something which we need to remember. This interview with young Beam must have reminded Maharaja of his own encounter with Maharani Ramabai way back in 1875. Both the cases, the people in question, the young Sayajirao Gaikwad and the young Beam, displayed enormous degree of confidence. Naturally, these two people made history. I have included the conversation between Maharaja and young Beam to convey the fact that the foundation of young Beam's philosophy has been well laid even before he embarked on his journey of education at Columbia University. Because nowadays, there are so many people who say that Babasaheb learned everything at foreign universities like Columbia, LSE, and etc. The fact of the matter is, has already established their foundation of education way before he went to Columbia, LSE, or anywhere else. As my good friend Vinesh Debai rightly says, these universities like Columbia, London School of Economics, Grayson, are lucky to have Dr. Ambedkar as their student, but not vice versa. We often hear these details, in our conversations, social media, etc., that, Babasaheb was so lucky that, he got an opportunity to study abroad. The fact of the matter is, those universities are lucky to have a germ like Dr. Ambedkar. This is something that we need to remember. And I thank my friend Vinesh Debai for rightly pointing out this important fact. And there's a very interesting thing. So this is actually the view of Mumbai city from the Malabar Hill. And as we just saw in the previous slides, Babasaheb went to Malabar Hill Palace to meet Maharaja. So if you see the Bombay city from that palace, this is how it would look. This picture was taken, I think, in 1905, so roughly the same period. Yes. On June 4th, 1913, young Beam signed an agreement with the Baroda state and was awarded an amount of rupees 20,000 as a scholarship. You can imagine 20,000 was a huge amount at that time. At Columbia University, young Beam excelled at every subject he touched. And he went on to finish his master's and PhD degrees at Columbia. And in fact, at Columbia University, Dr. Ambedkar finished his PhD thesis in economics It is called The Evolution of Provincial Finance in British India. Fascinating book. It will blow your mind. The kind of in-depth research that Babasaheb has done on the evolution of entire financial system in the British period will leave you spellbound. And this extraordinary book was dedicated to Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. And the dedication part reads, dedicated to His Highness Sri Sayajirao Gaikwad, Maharaja of Baroda, as a token of my gratitude for his help in the matter of my education. And Mangesh Dahiwala sir, who is an extraordinary expert on Babasaheb, Buddhism, and many topics, is now carrying a very interesting series of lectures on the economic thoughts of Babasaheb Ambedkar. So please visit the YouTube channel called Bodhicharya, and you'll find all these amazing videos to know more about Babasaheb as an economist. In 1918, after returning to India, Babasaheb went to Baroda to serve the state for 10 years as per the agreement. Initially, Babasaheb worked as a probationer in the Accountant General's office of the Maharaja. It was Maharaja's firm resolve to make Dr. Ambedkar the finance minister of Baroda. Giving an effect to it, it actually nominated Babasaheb to the Baroda Legislative Assembly. In fact, Maharaja was so determined to include Dr. Ambedkar in the assembly that he had actually passed a special electoral law in the Baroda Legislative Assembly which said only those who were prepared to sit in the assembly along with untouchable members were eligible to stand for elections. This is a revolutionary law. So Maharaja was simply saying, Dr. Ambedkar will be present in the assembly. He will be the future finance minister. And if you, the other people, want to come and join the assembly, you need to accept the fact that you're going to share the space with an untouchable members. If you agree to that, participate in the election. Otherwise, don't participate. It's a very revolutionary move made by Maharaja. But no amount of royal patronage could prevent even the normal low-level officials to practice caste discrimination on the highly literate Dr. Ambedkar. For the first 10 days, at Baroda, he stayed in a Parsi inn. But when the news broke out that an untouchable was residing in a Parsi inn, Babasaheb was forced to vacate the room. He actually tried to get accommodation in the state bungalow, but the concerned authorities did not pay him any attention. Babasaheb wrote many letters to the authorities that I need a space where I can stay because I'm not getting any space. The practice of untouchable is very rampant, but the authorities did not pay any attention. Deeply disappointed by the treatment meted out to him, he returned to Bombay in August of 1917. In fact, he recollected all these horrible experiences in a very short book called as Waiting for a Visa. And curious people who want to explore the experiences of Dr. Ambedkar at Baroda can read this short book called Waiting for a Visa to know more. After returning to Bombay from the Baroda state after those horrifying experiences, Babasaheb initiated his plans for social transformation without any delay. The very next year, that is in 1919, he submitted a memorandum to the South Borough Committee, which marked the beginning of Dr. Ambedkar's contribution in the making of Indian Constitution. Most people generally say that, the real task of Constitution began in 1946 or 47, but it's a, error. The real task of making the Constitution began in 1919, and Babasaheb was present right from the beginning. This is something which we discussed in my previous session also. People can check that for more details. So in 1927, Dr. Ambedkar got nominated as the member of the Bombay Province Legislative Council. He utilized this power and opportunity to launch the epic Mahad Satyagraha. Interestingly, it was this S.K. Bole, who was a close friend of Jyotiba Phule, who was a very good friend of Dr. Ambedkar's father, and who felicitated young Bhim when he passed the 4th class. This person, S.K. Bole, he was the one who passed the resolution in the Bombay Legislative Council in 1923 to allow the untouchables to use the public water spaces. Later, S.K. Bole also contested elections from Ratnagiri region under the banner of Dr. Ambedkar's Independent Labour Party in 1937. This is the kind of bond he shared, with the members of Satyasodak Samaj. And this S.K. Bole lived long enough to see Dr. Ambedkar drafting the constitution and initiating a mass conversion ceremony in 1956. In fact, SK Bole passed away in 1961 and Babasaheb passed away in 56. So he lived even, some years after the death of Babasaheb. So he's a very old man, saw so many things in his life. Lucky man. This was also the same time, the 1920s, when Dr. Ambedkar contributed some amount of money to publish the English translation of Dada Keluskar's Marathi book on Shivaji. And this is the newspaper clipping at the time where Dr. Ambedkar's donation can be seen. Interestingly, this legendary book on Shivaji, written by Dada Keluskar, was dedicated to Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. And I thank my friend Nikhil Bagde for this, for providing me this wonderful newspaper clip. And there's one of those rare images of Dr. Ambedkar, posing for a picture along with his followers near the statue of Shahu Maharaj. As we know, Shahu Maharaj was one of the active supporters of Satyasodak Samaj of Jotiba Phule. Interestingly, in 1911, when the first branch of Satyasodak Samaj was initiated by people like Bhaskar Jadhav and Sahib Latte and others, it was named as Sri Shahu Satyasodak Samaj. Recalling his bond of friendship with Shahu Maharaj, Babasaheb remarked, I have to tell here that my public life started in the Council of Mangaon, held under the chairmanship of late Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. He made me forever indebted to him by giving rupees 2,500 for promoting the equality
Why you
that
are
is
not
due to
audible?
him and me.
Hello?
I'm not audible.
Yeah. Can
Is it
you?
okay now?
Yeah. Can you repeat for 1 minute?
अच्छा, okay, no problem. पूरा repeat करूँगा.
Was it same
So,
for everyone?
Yeah, we can. I can hear Dr. Sairam very well. He's audible.
yeah,
Okay.
sure. So, okay, I'll just repeat the last part. So, recalling his bond of friendship with Shahu Maharaj, Dr. Ambedkar later remarked in 1939 that I have to tell here that my public life started in the Council of Mangaon, held under the chairmanship of late Chhatrapati Shahu Maharaj. He made me forever indebted to him by giving rupees 2,500 for promoting the cause of equality that is dear to him and me. So this is the kind of friendship shared by Babasaheb and Shahu Maharaj. And as I said, Shahu Maharaj was also actively involved in the movement of Jyotiba Phule. So all these people are somehow closely linked. And that's what we're going to explore in this session. Now let us come to the roundtable conferences. As we know, failure of the Simon Commission of 1928 to settle the question of Indian constitutional reform had led the then Prime Minister of the UK, Ramsay MacDonald, to hold a series of roundtable conferences in London. In these conferences, Dr. Ambedkar had emerged not only as the unchallenged leader of millions of depressed classes, but also as the unparalleled authority on the constitution and law. Gandhi could be seen nowhere, as a matter of fact. So this is one of the rarest images of Babasaheb boarding, the ship. And I thank my friend Nikhil Bagde for sharing this. Well, all the people who attended the conferences were spellbound with the speeches of Dr. Ambedkar. There was this one individual who was sitting actually in front of him in the roundtable conference, who took the greatest pride in witnessing the speech of Babasaheb. And that person was none other than Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad, who was also one of the official invitees to the roundtable conference. And the Maharaja's joy was so boundless that he hosted a special dinner party to Dr. Ambedkar at Hyde Park Hotel in London. And the very next day, the London Times carried this wonderful article with the title Prince and Outcast at Dinner in London and Age-Old Barrier. Interestingly, as I said, as we discussed, Maharaja was one of those lucky individuals who witnessed the speeches of both Mahatma Phule and Dr. Ambedkar. So as we saw, Mahatma Jotiba Phule narrated the entire book of Shetkar Chasu to Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. And here is Maharaja witnessing the speech of Dr. Ambedkar at the roundtable conferences. So he's very lucky to see both these extraordinary men delivering the speeches. So very interesting information that I'm going to share. So during the same time, Dr. Ambedkar and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad attended a special party given by Isabel MacDonald, who was the daughter of Prime Minister Ramsay MacDonald, at Cheggers to a select choice of delegates. So Dr. Ambedkar was one of the only very few people who attended this party, and he spoke to all of these important delegates of the UK and briefed them about the tales of untouchables and what can be done to emancipate them. It is worth recalling that during the roundtable conferences, Dr. Ambedkar had also met the King of England, George V, to present the case of untouchables of India and has received a very sympathetic hearing from the Emperor. And let me clarify my point. My point is not to boast of any emperor or queen. I was just trying to state the fact that in the process of delivering justice to his people, Babasaheb was able to negotiate even with the authorities of supreme power. And this is actually this is a very important strategy. Babasaheb, he could have simply said they are colonizers, why should I argue? But that's not what he did. It doesn't matter if the other person is colonizer or imperialist or anyone. You have to negotiate with the powerful people to deliver justice to your people. This is a very important strategy. And even in politics, it works. So this is something that we need to understand in a very broad sense. Instead of simply saying Dr. Ambedkar spoke to, representatives of England or a king or queen. Why was he speaking? Because so that he could negotiate with them, so that people, his people, the poorest of the poor people, the untouchables, can get justice. This is something that we need to remember. The context is very important. We are not boasting any king or queen. उससे हमको कोई लेना देना नहीं है. Yes, when Dr. Ambedkar returned to India after rocking at the roundtable conferences, he received a superb welcome from his followers and was felicitated grandly by Ramai and her associates. It's often forgotten that Ramai played a very crucial role in the movement of Dr. Ambedkar. To use the words of my friend once again, Vinay Shinde, he says, it is widely believed that it was Ramai that gave Babasaheb the initial idea of building own institutions. She had said, our people should go to their own places to study rather than go far away. Maybe she could relate to the challenges with Babasaheb's education. Ramai would treat all the community children with love and affection. In Dharwad, when there was a lack of funds, the hostel run by Babasaheb, she sold off her ornaments to feed the children studying there. She would always inquire about the health of the children all the time. When Babasaheb's son Rajaratna passed away, he was in extreme grief. He was very close to him. Ramai gave him confidence at the time, and she told him, those who wait for grieving are not able to accomplish anything in life. It is better for the society. You move out of this grief. And Ramai, as you know, saw the death of 4 of her children, but she did not keep on grieving for them for a long time. She believed that her sorrow is lesser than that of the untouchables and other women. She always stood with Babasaheb like a rock, like a partner. The reason why I'm telling these important points is that I see that Ramai is portrayed very, inappropriately in the movies of Jabbar Patel or in the serials. She is shown as a very weak person, very meek person. But that's not the case. She was the very strongest woman. She used to support Babasaheb. She used to be a very important part of the institutions built by Dr. Ambedkar. She used to give him suggestions. She used to manage the entire part. So that's what we need to remember. And as we know, when Babasaheb wrote his book, Pakistan and Partition of the India, he dedicated it to his wife. He says, inscribed to the memory of Ramu, as a token of my appreciation of her goodness of heart, her nobility of mind, and her purity of character, and also for the cool fortitude and readiness to suffer along with me, which she showed in those friendless days of want and worries which fell to her lot. See the different aspects that Dr. Ambedkar mentioned. Her goodness of heart, her nobility of mind, and purity of character. These are different aspects in which he was talking about his wife. And all these people, serial people and movie people, they simply portray her as a very weak, subservient woman. But that's not the case. Here is Babasaheb, a nobility of mind, purity of character, and goodness of heart. Why don't these people show all these aspects? This is something that we need to think about. And this is one of those very rare images of Babasaheb and Ramai taken. And see, this is S.K. Bole once again. He is everywhere. And to continue the post of my friend Vinay Shinde, for me, Rama is not just about sacrifice. She is about love and affection. Her partnership with Babasaheb in her own ways, her independence of managing the family alone when Babasaheb was away, her own love for the community, her strength, her ability to cope up with the losses of children. We need to move beyond this narrative of sacrifice of Rama. Rama is a world in herself. She's love, she's power, she's strength. Taken from the post of my friend Vinay Shinde. These are the valuable words that we need to remember when we are recalling the memory of Rama. On 6th February 1939, Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad passed away at the age of 75. Although Maharaja could not live longer to see Dr. Ambedkar becoming the chief architect of India's constitution, was undoubtedly a witness to the magnificent transformation of Babasaheb from young being in the Elephantine College to the unchallenged leader of millions of untouchables and downtrodden. In 1950, when Babasaheb was at the zenith of his life, peak moment as the chief of architect of India's constitution, he wrote a letter to Maharaja Pratap Singh of Baroda, who was the grandson of Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad, expressing his desire to write a biography of his grandfather. This is the picture of Maharaja Pratap Singh, and this is the original picture of the letter written by Dr. Ambedkar to Maharaja Pratap Singh. I'll share the relevant excerpts from that letter. So Babasaheb writes, to His Highness Maharaja Pratap Singh, Baroda, my dear Maharaja Sahib, I have been for a long time chasing the idea of writing the life of His late Highness Maharaja Sayaji. You can well understand my desire on this behalf. It was he who gave me higher education, which has enabled me to reach the high status which I occupy today in the public life of this country. But for his help, this would not have been possible. He was my patron and the architect of my fortunes. Look at these powerful words. I owe a deep debt of gratitude, which I wish I can adequately repay. The only way I could do this is to write his life. He has played a great part in the history of the country, both as an individual and as a ruler. It could be very unfortunate if the life of such a noble and great personality were to go unrecorded. Unfortunately, Babasaheb could not write his biography on Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. Let's now come to the fourth theme, and it's the tireless efforts made by Dr. Ambedkar to revive the legacy of Jotiba Phule and Savitrimai. In order to understand the true significance of Dr. Ambedkar's efforts to revive the legacy of Phule, we need to go back to 1800s. But before that, we'll see a glimpse of the contributions made by Jotiba Savitrimai Phule. As we know, Jotiba and Savitrimai were the pioneers of school movement that educated girls and students from the untouchable communities. They opened special night schools for working people and extended staunch support for compulsory education. And they produced literature to uncover the truth. Sorry for that mistake. And they opened orphanages, infanticide prevention centers, maternity homes for women, where pregnant women were actually nursed with utmost care. And they championed widow remarriage and fought relentlessly to ensure equality. We also know that they opened wells and schools for the untouchables and educated them to attack the injustices of the caste system. And they questioned the socio-economic exploitation of the Shudrati Shudras and championed the cause of landless laborers. And as we know, Jyotiba formed Satyashodak Samaj to attack the foundations of caste system and to perform all the required ceremonies with the help of non-Brahmin priests. Massive campaign against superstitions were carried by Jyotiba and Savitrimai, and they said that marriages should be taking place with less expenses. And there are many more contributions, and it's impossible to discuss them in this short presentation. Now, you might say, like, opening schools and all, it's a normal thing, like maybe it's not that great. But if you look at the context of the time seriously and see the parallel events happening in the very same period, that's in 1850s and all, you'll understand why Jyotiba Phule and Savitrimai Phule were truly radical in nature. In a letter written on September 29, 1859, John Peter Grant, the Lieutenant Governor of Bengal, Ishwar Chandra Vidyasagar, who is considered as a very great radical who did so much for the women, he wrote a letter to Lieutenant Governor and said, an impression appears to have gained ground, both here and in England, that enough has been done for the education of the higher classes, and that attention should now be directed towards the education of the masses. And Vidyasagar writes, the government should, in my humble opinion, confine itself to the education of the higher classes on a comprehensive scale. These are the remarks made by the very popular social radical of the time. This was in 1859, and Vidyasagar is contemporary of both Jyotiba and Savitrimai Phule. So those who think that opening schools and all might be a normal thing or not a radical thing, should see entire thing in the context and look at the forces at play who are trying to prevent the spread of education, even the basic education, to the masses. In this horrifying context, Jyotiba and Savitrimai Phule opened schools, educated the children, particularly the untouchables. No one even dares to touch them. They opened the schools for them and educated them. This is something that we need to remember in this entire context. And Vidyasagar categorically advocated for confining education only to higher classes, both men and women, truly radical in this sense, and not to Shudras and untouchables. This is something that we need to remember. As I said, in order to understand the true significance of Dr. Ambedkar's efforts to revive the legacy of Phule Kabul, we need to go back to 1880s. The 1880s marked the onset of deep financial problems for the Phule Kabul. In the words of Hari Nakesar, in July 1887, Jyotirao suffered from heart attack that paralyzed his right side completely. Savitribai nursed him night and day through this illness. He recovered and even started writing again. In fact, when his right hand got paralyzed, he started writing with the left hand. And this was a time when they were facing a financial crisis. The business of the Pune construction and contracting company had hit a low. Sources of income were drying up and the expenses were tremendous. The couple was at their wits' end with the expenses over the illness, the maintenance of the hostel, home for prevention of infanticide, Satyashodak Samaj, and the education of the children. There came a time when they had no money to pay even for the treatment, and Dr. Vishram Ramji Gole provided the treatment for free. We saw the simple chart of contributions made by Jyotiba and Savitri. But by 1880s, this is the condition in which they lived, which is very disheartening. Many efforts have been made unsuccessfully by friends of Jyotiba like Mama Paramanand, Dr. Vishram Ramji Gole, Ramchandra Rao and others to secure the financial assistance the Phule could do. Mama Paramanand has actually tried to reach out to Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad multiple times, but we now know that the letters that Mama Paramanand wrote to Sayajirao could not reach because of the cunning tactics played by the caste Hindu or upper caste bureaucrats of the Maharaja. Sayajirao Gaikwad was not aware of all these things. Finally, the day of extreme grief had arrived on, and on 27 November 1890, Mahatma Jotiba Phule passed away. Savitrimai could not recover from the loss of her husband. She was in deep grief and was constantly reminded of his memories. But she mustered the strength and decided to continue his legacy. She became the chairperson of the Satyashodak Samaj conference that was held at Saswat in 1893. She continued many of her noble works, overcoming innumerable obstacles. And now this is the most important part of our presentation. The plague of 1897, and the final days of Savitrimai. In 1896, parts of Mumbai's presidency were ravaged by the plague. Even here, Savitrimai worked constantly with an unabating spirit. Majority of the biographies of Savitrimai refer to her contributions during this plague only in a very superficial sense. But if you look at the context in which she worked, then only we will understand the kind of valiant efforts that Savitrimai undertook to help the people suffering with plague. And this was one of those rare pictures during the plague of 1897, where flushing engines were used to sanitize and clean the infected homes. And we'll see these things in detail. Pune, with a population of nearly 150,000, lost more than 10,000 dead plague, even with half the city in flight. So half of the people left the city, but still 10,000 people died in the remaining population. You can understand the degree of death toll. Anguished by the draconian policies adopted by the British to tackle the spread of the plague, Dr. L.F. Barker of Johns Hopkins University, who play a very important role, the San Francisco plague experience, he came to India. So he read the newspaper articles and clippings when he was in foreign and noticed the British government is doing nothing to curb the spread of plague. So he came all the way to India in that context. There's the picture of Dr. Barker. And we'll see the severity of the plague during that phase. Dr. Barker was disheartened to see the scenes of bullock carts laden with plague patients being taken to hospital. In shock, he also saw a pile of skulls lying on the ground in countless places. This is actually the original picture taken in Pune by a British photographer. You'll find many such pictures. In fact, this is one of the least distressing picture in that photo album. That is why I'm including it here, because the rest of the pictures are too horrible even to see. You'll not get sleep. They're very, very disheartening and terrifying. This is the least disturbing image, so I've included here. Looking at all these things, Dr. Barker came to a conclusion. He said his experience left him with an indelible impression of a dreadful nightmare similar to Black Death in the 14th century. And what is Black Death? The Black Death was a bubonic plague pandemic that occurred in Europe in the 14th century, which took the lives of as many as 15 million people, or half of the Europe. So here is Dr. Barker comparing the situation of plague in Pune to the Black Death that occurred in the 14th century of Europe, where half of the population is lost. So you can understand the horrifying context of that plague. In that context, Savitrimai worked. This is very important to remember, because as I said, most of the biographers usually refer to these events in a very superficial sense, right? Like they just give a very passing reference. But we'll see the things in a very detailed manner. Let us see the horrifying backdrop in which Savitrimai pursued her relentless efforts to help the people. So on one hand, you have this ineffective action plan from the arrogant British officials. Indians are really, angry with the British officials because they would randomly go to their rooms, inspect their body parts, private body parts, without any, prior information, and they would often do the same thing in public. Naturally, people will get angry. And then you have this extreme caste consciousness and caste discrimination. Despite the tremendous death toll, the caste society was still reluctant to discard the dictates of caste. Far from lending helping hands to each other, people belonging to different communities or castes were hell-bent to observe the customs of caste in an aggravated manner, even in hospitals and cremation grounds. So whenever patients were taken into the hospital, the first thing they would ask is not the kind of equipment they had in the hospital. The first thing they would ask is, am I placed in the room where my caste people are present, or am I taken to a different place where people from other communities are present? So even in that serious conditions, these people were thinking only about their caste. So you can understand. And there were widespread rumors. And one of the popular rumors is that Indians used to believe that, British people were forcibly taking all these patients to the hospital to kill them so that the population can be controlled. This was one of the very popular rumors. And then you have mass exodus of public to the interior parts of the Bombay presidency. Initially, plague was only confined to Bombay city, but soon it spread to almost all parts of the Bombay province because people got scared and they began going to the interior parts of the state. Naturally, the disease has spread. And in fact, wandering was considered as one of the symptoms of plague. So if a British official gets a report that, in a particular area, people are wandering, they are going to different parts of the province, the British official would assume that maybe there is a plague in that area and that is why people were moving. So wandering was considered as one of the symptoms of plague. And then death of countless innocent people because of this ineffective action of British people, caste consciousness, wide rumors, and many other things. The society was decayed and festered beyond repair. The British government, as we discussed, which is supposed to help the people, had relinquished its job without any sense of shame or remorse. This is the horrifying context in which Savitrimai worked to help the people during the plague epidemic. And these are the two exclusive images. So I was talking about the caste consciousness at the time. So here is the picture of caste Hindus wants to have the dead bodies of the relatives to be cremated exclusively in a different parts of the city. So naturally, the rest of the population, particularly the untouchables or the low caste Hindus, were forced to bury their dead bodies of their relatives in a very different and exclusive spot. This is how caste system works. because of their closed door policy, the rest of the people were closed to shut their doors. So the exclusion practiced by the caste Hindus or the castes are responsible for the caste distinctions in the society. And these images were taken in Pune in 1897. Recalling her efforts, the efforts of Savitrimai, Harin Arkesar writes, as soon as she came to know that son of the Pandurang Babaji Gaikwad, the Mahar settlement outside the village of Mundwa was afflicted with the plague, she went there and rushed back to the hospital with the sick child on her back. She caught the disease in this process, and at 9 p.m. on 10th March 1897, she passed away. Savitrimai was 65 years old. She passed away. People generally assume that maybe she is in 40s or 50s, but she was 65 years old when she passed away. And what was the necessity? She was already in a very deep financial problems. Her husband, her co-emancipator, and he's not alive. And the situation is horrible. Yet, Savitrimai's humanity was so great that she went to that Mahar settlement and picked up that boy, helped him, and in this process, she caught the disease and passed away. This is an extraordinary tragedy. In this juncture, it's very important to recall the profound words of Dr. Ambedkar, who said, the untouchables are the most loathed and the most miserable people that history can witness. They are spent and sacrificed people. And that untouchability is the lowest depth to which the degradation of human being can be carried. In this historical context of worst humanity, here is a woman who has embraced the deserted untouchable humanity into her fold and nurtured them with unfathomable love and care. People don't even touch a normal, healthy living untouchable. Leave people affected with plague. People don't even touch a normal, living, healthy untouchable. But here is a case where we are dealing with an untouchable child who got affected with plague. But still, Savitrimai was like, no, humanity is the first priority for me. Saving the child, life of the child, my first priority. Her endearment is so untainted, so pure, that she died while serving the untouchables. I personally find it hard, if not impossible, to read the revolutionary life of Savitrimai without fighting back my tears. But anyone who cares to know about the fate that befallen her family, I assure you, you would spend many sleepless nights. In the words of Harin Arkesar, after the death of Savitrimai, the lonely Dr. Yashwant, her son, was very distant. In 1903, he married Chandrabhaga Bai and she gave birth to a girl child who was named as Soni, alias Lakshmi. He worked in Hong Kong, Africa, and China for the army. He passed away, Yashwant passed away on 13th October 1906. The feeling of becoming orphaned and lonely was overwhelming for his wife, Chandrabhaga, and his daughter, Soni. First, they sold all of Jyotirov's books to a scrap dealer. There is a tragedy. Then, they survived by selling the utensils in the house. And finally, on 28th October 1910, they sold Jyotirao and Savitrimai's historical house for a mere 100 rupees to Maruti Krishnaji. Jyotirao and Savitribai's daughter-in-law was rendered homeless and died destitute. The temple of Rameshwar. Her last rites were performed by the municipality. This is the disastrous fate. Here is a case of the couple, Jotiba Phule and Savitrimai, who spent their whole life, sacrificed their own life for the emancipation of the people. And here is the fate of their own daughter-in-law, where she passed away in a temple, the footsteps of a temple. The final rites were performed by the municipality. Can there be any greater tragedy than this? Unfortunately, all these details are not discussed much. We're only accustomed to read about the great contributions, which are undoubtedly true. But we also need to remember what happened to them in their final days and what happened to the son and daughter-in-law of Jyotiba Savitrimai after the death. And as you can see, their daughter-in-law died in the footsteps of a temple. The last rites were performed by the municipality. This is a huge tragedy. Hari Narke rightly asks, a revolutionary family had to face such heart-wrenching destitution and adversity. The widowed daughter-in-law of Jyotirao and Savitrimai, who brought the light of happiness into the lives of hundreds of widows, had to die a destitute death in the footsteps of a temple. What can one say about this tragedy? It's very heart-wrenching. But this is the reality that we must face. What followed later was even more disappointing. Many people who were associated with Jyotiba, Savitrimai, Satyashodak Samaj, they slowly started disassociating and joined the Congress party, which was formed in 1885, and any other petty political parties. So all these people who were with Jyotiba and Savitrimai when they were alive, after their death, they deserted the Satyashodak Samaj and joined the political parties and other organizations for their own petty gains. Finally, this is the most distressing part. The legacy of the Phule couple was made to vanish from the memory of the many by 1920s. The entire thing infuriated young me who had been observing this open and shameless betrayal of associates of the Phule couple. He was 13 years old. He was observing everything. He was seeing how these people who used to boast themselves as the followers of Jyotiba and Savitrimai are now deserting their ideology and going and jumping into Congress and other parties. He was observing all these things. And he promised and he pledged himself that he was not going to abandon the philosophy of the Phule couple under any circumstances. And he remained steadfast to this commitment till his last breath. Speaking about this betrayal, Dr. Ambedkar later remarked, I consider Jyotiba Phule as my teacher. He is the true teacher of non-Brahmins. Jyotiba gave and taught humanity lessons to castes like Shimpi, Kumhar, Navi, Koli, Mahar, Monk, and Chambar. Initially, many Marathas were also his disciples, but today there are very strange circumstances where no one, be it Maratha, Kurmi, Mali, Teli, and other castes, takes Jyotiba's name. No one is speaking about Jyotiba. The man who initiated the greatest social revolution in Bombay province in 1870s and 1880s, and by 1920s, no one is taking his name. Dr. Ambedkar strongly asserted the rest of the people might leave Jyotiba's way, but we will not certainly abandon his way. We stick to this principle till the end. That is what makes Dr. Ambedkar the greatest man. On another occasion, Babasaheb asserted, I never felt ashamed to proclaim myself as the follower of Mahatma Jotiba Phule, either in the past or in the present. I tell with full confidence that if there is anyone who has been associated to Jyotiba with honesty, it's only me. He says, I am certain that any party that comes to power, whatever be its name, and cares for the all-round development of masses, it would have to follow Jyotiba's visionary approach, ethical principles, and philosophy. Move forward. This is the only way to achieve democracy. So Babasaheb rightly asks, what is the use of crying and making noise about freedom when more than 80% of the masses are denied access to education and kept so openly in a perpetual state of social, economic, and political slavery? Everyone must get the fruits of the freedom. Throughout his public life, Babasaheb Ambedkar strived very hard to implement the transformative vision of Jyotiba Savitri. Let us see the following three examples just to understand the entire thing. First, the transformative vision in the Indian Constitution. As we know, Dr. Ambedkar is the chief architect of the Indian Constitution, and he was very successful in imbibing the philosophy of Jyotiba Savitrimai, their transformative vision in the Indian Constitution. In his manifesto of his political party, Scheduled Caste Federation, Dr. Ambedkar writes, the Constitution of Free India has made the backward classes, the scheduled tribes, and the scheduled castes virtually the masters of the country. People ask, what is the significance of Constitution? Here is the answer. The Constitution of Free India has made the backward classes, the scheduled tribes, and the scheduled castes virtually the masters of the country. Hitherto, till now, the minority of caste Hindus have made themselves the rulers of the country. The fear of the scheduled caste federation is that backward classes and scheduled tribes, by reason of their want of consciousness, may fall a prey to the minority of caste Hindus and continue to be their slaves instead of becoming masters of their own. This is something that has to be repeated again and again. Constitution's vision is to make these normal masses, the masses of the country, as the masters. This is the true transformative vision of the Indian Constitution that Babasaheb Ambedkar included. The Scheduled Caste Federation, he continues, the first concern is to help these classes, backward class and scheduled tribes, to get on their own feet. Babasaheb says, if they so wish, the Scheduled Caste Federation will be prepared to change the name and call itself the Backward Class Federation, so as to include both sections in a common organization. He's like, I'll change the name of my party and make it Backward Class Federation so that everyone can come and join and participate in the social movement. But as we know, the other communities were reluctant to join the movement of Babasaheb, thinking that he's an untouchable. And even today we see how people from these communities are not able to unite. This is the most challenging thing for the future generations and current generation to tackle. Second, so first contribution is transformative vision in the Constitution. Second is reservation services. Babasaheb says, similarly, in the matters of services, the Scheduled Caste Federation will insist on reservation in the civil and military services of the country. Today, there is rampant, a worst sort of communalism in the civil and military services of the country by the higher classes. The services have become the monopoly of a few communities. When the lower classes are trying to break this monopoly by demanding that they who are at the present are excluded from the services, they are now decried as communalists. This is the logic that is always used. So whenever people demand share, they are like, you are communal, you are. But are we really communal? Babasaheb gives the answer. He says, the Scheduled Caste Federation will not allow this perverted logic to stand in the way of the non-privileged classes, in the way of fulfillment of their demand for occupying their rightful place. It's very important, rightful place, the affairs of this country. Reservation is not some charity, or it is not some crumbs or bread pieces that are thrown onto the people. It is your rightful place. The reason why I included this part in the presentation is that I know some of the students might be listening to this lecture, and I know from personal experience as well as general experience that students, particularly from scheduled caste communities, are humiliated on a daily basis in their classrooms, canteens, hostels, everywhere, that you are here by taking reservation, you don't have merit, you're taking everything, you're snatching everything from us. Let these students who are suffering from these daily humiliations, please see this light. Reservation is nothing but your share, your rightful place in the affairs of the country. This is what called as participatory government, participatory democracy. Third aspect, land for landless people. Babasaheb says, although India is an agriculture country, there are a vast number of people who are just landless laborers, who are eking out a miserable living and who are exploited by the cultivators, and majority of whom, the landless laborers, are untouchables and other backward classes. He's not just speaking for untouchables, he's speaking about everyone. Babasaheb says, there is no need why this body of landless laborers should be left to their fate, resulting in their misery and the poverty of the country. This is all the more regrettable because the situation is not beyond remedy. Babasaheb continues and says, it is quite clear that there are 93 million acres of land which is cultivable waste and which can be brought under the cultivation. Surely, it cannot be beyond modern science to reclaim this vast amount of cultivable wasteland and make it available for cultivation. The Scheduled Caste Federation will take this question. And in fact, Babasaheb was extremely successful in including this basic philosophy in the Indian Constitution. What is Article 39, Clause B and Clause C? You see this. Article 39 Clause B says, the ownership and control of the material resources of the community are so distributed as best to subserve the common good. And Clause C says that the operation of the economic system does not result in the concentration of wealth and means of production, the common detriment. Today, we see many reports that inequality in India is at the highest level, or even worse than the imperial system of the British. This shows that the constitution is not being implemented. People who blame constitution that our constitution is bad should actually read the constitution. Constitution clearly says that all these inequalities must be curbed. But as Babasaheb reminded us, people who run the government, people who manage the executive, who manage the judiciary, they should protect the constitution. If they do not do that, country will suffer. As the first law minister of independent India, Babasaheb single-handedly granted land rights to countless backward communities in Punjab by repealing the iniquitous Punjab Land Alienation Act, and not to speak of the provisions of the Hindu Code Bill that granted the rights to inherit the property to all. It is often forgotten that one of the earliest battles to redistribute the land for the landless laborers was led by Dr. Ambedkar when he initiated the Aurangabad Land Satyagraha in 1953. Whenever I tell these things, some people react like, did Babasaheb Ambedkar really speak about the question of class? I didn't know this. I understand why people say these things because of this distorted framework. So, particularly in the academia, we have this distorted framework that obfuscates the reality. So, this is the broad picture of the academia, and this is Dr. Ambedkar's framework to understand the reality. In the world of academia, the question of caste, class, and gender are viewed as discrete categories that function through the dynamics of intersection. That is why we have a huge corpus of literature dealing with the problems of class and gender by completely detaching the question of caste from them. As a result, this entire literature appears jejune, very superficial. It is like they're discussing about everything except the main problem. But let us look at the framework of Dr. Ambedkar. He says the ideology of caste system dictates every aspect of our life, including the questions of class and gender. People quote Toni Morrison a lot, but they forget that was Toni Morrison who also said that gender discrimination is there all across the world. But in every country, in every state, there is an ideology that justifies and reinforces that gender discrimination. She says in America, that's the ideology of race that justifies the gender discrimination. And Babasaheb long before has said that it is the ideology of caste that dictates every aspect of life for Indians. And in academia, everything is distorted. You will find different approaches. But that is why it's very important to read Babasaheb, to understand reality. Now, the three examples that we have so far discussed, the transformative vision in the Constitution, reservation in services, land for landless people, and all these things prove beyond doubt as to how Dr. Ambedkar strived throughout his life for the betterment of scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and the backward classes. He wanted these classes, no matter how strong their differences are, to unite and capture the power. Is this not what Jotiba and Savitrimai fought for? No one has implemented the philosophy of Jotiba Savitrimai more honestly and more efficiently and effectively than Dr. Ambedkar. That is why he always says with extraordinary degree of pride that I tell you with full confidence that if there is anyone who has been associated to Jotiba with honesty, it's only me. In 1946, when the entire political atmosphere in India was changing, Babasaheb published his path-breaking book called Who Were Shudras. Unsurprisingly, he dedicated this book to his guru, Mahatma Jotiba Phule. The dedication part he proudly wrote, inscribed to the memory of Mahatma Jotiba Phule, the greatest Shudra of modern India, who made the lower classes of Hindus conscious of their slavery to the higher classes, and who preached the gospel that for India, social democracy was more vital than independence from foreign rule. Besides dedicating his book to Jotiba, Babasaheb even planned to write a complete authoritative biography. To fulfill this purpose, he had made untiringly painstaking efforts to collect and republish all his works. Speaking about the same thing, Dr. Savita Ambedkar, she noted, he, Dr. Ambedkar, was very keen to write on Mahatma Jotiba Phule. He had wanted to write a comprehensive biography of Phule that would include an evaluation of his revolutionary and historically significant deeds. He had gathered all the books written on Jyotiba for that purpose. There's a very interesting thing. Where copies were not available, he had got those books either copied by his own hand or typewritten. His love for Jyotiba Phule is so high that whenever there is any fragile copy of the book Jyotiba, he would actually copy each and every word with his own hand and make a note of it. This is the extraordinary degree of love that Babasaheb had for Jyotiba Phule. Dr. Savita Ambedkar continues. He had carried to Delhi several reference books borrowed from the Asiatic Library, Bombay, and Historical Research Institute in Pune, of which he was a member. Likewise, Acharya Atre had collected artifacts, books, documents, and other material for his movie Mahatma Phule. Babasaheb had called over him and got all the materials that would be useful for writing a biography, which Atre had sent to her with great pleasure. But unfortunately, just as case with Sayajirao Gaikwad, Babasaheb could not finish writing a book on Jyotiba, and we'll see why. It would have been truly fascinating to read his analysis of Jyotiba Phule and Savitrimai from multiple vantage points. Be that as it may, by declaring Jyotiba Phule as his guru and popularizing his ideals throughout his life, Dr. Ambedkar has rekindled and revived the tremendous spirit of Phule Kabul, just as he revived the great religion of Buddha. It's often remarked that Babasaheb Ambedkar single-handedly revived the great religion of Gautam Buddha, which is true. But we often forget that Babasaheb had not only revived the religion of Gautam Buddha, but also the spirit of Jyotiba Phule and Savitrimai. We have seen in the previous slides about how people deserted Jyotiba Phule and Savitrimai in the last phase. But Babasaheb is the one who stood like a rock and was so steadfast in his commitment to the ideology of Jyotiba and Savitrimai that even today we have huge respect on them. Thus, it is unsurprising to say that even today, the legacy of the Phules is kept alive and fondly cherished by Ambedkarites across the nation. We ought to thank Babasaheb for holding the Phule couple close to his heart and for keeping the revolutionary memory alive. Interestingly, when P.K. Atre, Prahlad Keshav Atre, made a movie on Jyotiba Phule, it was Dr. Ambedkar who attended the opening ceremony as the chief guest. Here is this fascinating picture of Dr. Ambedkar with Savita Ambedkar in that opening ceremony of the movie. Here is the hero, Babura Pendakar, and here is the heroine, Savitrimai, played by Sulochana, who went on to become a very popular actress in Bollywood. She played the role of, mother for Amitabh Bachchan, Devan, and many other actors. And here is P.K. Atre. After the movie was released, Dr. Ambedkar saw the movie and appreciated Atre, the cast and crew of the movie. Recollecting about that event, Dr. Savita Ambedkar noted, once the film was ready, Atre also invited us for its premiere. Sai was completely overwhelmed when he saw the movie. As he saw it, he remembered Mahatma Phule's work and sacrifice and wept. After the movie was over, he patted Pendharkar on the back for his excellent performance and congratulated the director Atre too. Not satisfied with this, he wrote a letter to Atre on 20th November 1955, lavishing praises on him and wishing the movie success. So in this juncture, I'd like to ask a question to our listeners. How many movies did Dr. Ambedkar watch in his lifetime? Do you have any idea? I'll reveal the answer after the session. But meanwhile, in the comment section, please let me know if you know the answer. How many movies did Dr. Ambedkar watch in his lifetime? Please let me know in the comment section. Finally, the conclusion part. I know I've shared a great part of this conclusion in my last session, but given the significance of this important thing, I felt I need to say this again. In fact, it has to be repeated 1,000 times again and again daily, because this is the most important thing that we are going to learn from this presentation. Why do we need to read the works of Babasaheb? The simple answer is, I can quote the works of Babasaheb, who said, those who do not know history cannot make history. before doing anything, before initiating any change in the family or society or anything. You should first know the history. Otherwise, you cannot make the history. I'll explore this thing in a very detailed manner now. It is true that Babasaheb Ambedkar could not write books on Mahatma Phule and Maharaja Sayajirao Gaikwad. And it is equally true that it is our bad luck that we cannot read them. But Babasaheb did write more than 25 volumes of works. And the real question is, what is preventing us from reading these books? And this is the image, and this is my classification of his books. People can have different classifications. So as we know, Babasaheb wrote books on these following subjects with an extraordinary, unparalleled authority. On economics, he's written 3 books. Law and politics, almost 6 books. On history, anthropology, and sociology, he's written 6 books. On comparative religion, I know there are some people who consider religion as part of anthropology, but I'm including it separately. On comparative religion, he wrote 5 books. As you can see, there are almost 20 books, and there are many books that are yet to be published. So he's written so much in his lifetime. And it's very important to understand the context in which he wrote these books, because that gives you the motivation or whatever the impetus to start reading his works. It's very essential to understand that Babasaheb wrote these innumerable works while he was battling with serious health issues. By the 1940s, Dr. Ambedkar's health began deteriorating. He had frequent episodes of health problems that impacted the quality of his life severely. The period 1945 to 47 represents the most uncertain phase in the life of Babasaheb, because the British had declared that they're going to divide the power between Hindus and Muslims, leaving untouchables without any protection. So the lives of both Hindus and Muslims, it's secure. British government said we will divide the power between both these communities. Naturally, what is going to happen to untouchable, whose number is almost 70 million in 1936? So what is going to happen to these 70 million souls of untouchables? This question baffled Dr. Ambedkar very seriously. Dr. Ambedkar knew that if some checks and balances are not introduced in the independent India, the future of untouchables and backward classes will be doomed forever. In this context, he met Winston Churchill and other British leaders who argue for the case of untouchables. He was extremely successful in arguing his case and getting a sympathetic hearing and strength and support from those leaders. The entire process of traveling abroad, preparing a memorandum, meeting important people, and initiating talks, etc., have taken a heavy and irreparable toll on this already fragile youth. In fact, on 31st August 1947, in a letter to Kamalakant Chitri, Babasaheb wrote, "For the last 15 days, I have not had a wink of sleep. The nights have become a nightmare to me. The neurotic pain always comes at midnight and continues throughout. I am taking insulin as well as homeopathic medicine. Neither seems to give me relief. I must now learn to endure what appears beyond care." Read the first lines once again. For the last 15 days, I have not had a wink of sleep. How many hours do we usually sleep? We sleep maybe 7 hours, 8 hours, or maybe less. And can you imagine working tirelessly without having a wink of sleep for 15 days? Can you imagine that? Try to placing yourself in that context. I'm not glorifying all these difficulties. No person should have these difficulties in their life. But the context is important. This is the context where Babasaheb could not sleep for 15 days. He is saying that he had not a wink of sleep, and nights have become a nightmare. Imagine when nights have become a nightmare to us. We usually go to bed and sleep so that we'll have a peaceful sleep and we can wake up in the morning. But what if the nights itself become a nightmare? This is a horrifying thing. And Babasaheb had to endure this thing many days. Try to imagine. It's very difficult to live in that context. And it's not just the problem of not getting the sleep because of the pain. He could not sleep At the same time, he was engaged in the drafting of Indian Constitution at that time. Imagine the situation. This letter was written exactly at a time when he became the chairman of the drafting committee, which oversaw the framing of constitution for independent India. On one hand, he could not sleep because of neurotic pain. On the other hand, he was writing the Constitution of India, which is a huge mammoth task. And people who say there are 279 members, there's a drafting committee, what are they doing? We know from history that these people did not participate in the making of constitution. If you read the speeches of T.T. Krishnamachari and others, out of 8 or 9 members in the drafting committee, of which Babasaheb was the chairman, rest of the people did not even attend the meetings verbally. One went to Northeast India, Assam, and the other person died. The other person went somewhere to do his official work. Ultimately, the entire burden of framing the constitution fell upon the shoulders of the already fragile Dr. Ambedkar. In this context, he wrote the constitution. This is something that we need to remember. Babasaheb knew he was already too weak, but his love, unfathomable love for his people and country was so great that he sacrificed his health altogether to participate actively in the making of Indian Constitution. This is the drafting committee. Half of the people did not even come. As the chief architect of Indian Constitution, Babasaheb Ambedkar created a new history. He was at the peak of his career as an intellectual and as an undisputed leader of the oppressed. He did everything he could to protect the rights of his people and the sovereignty of this great country. Now, after finishing his task of framing the constitution, many doctors and well-wishers requested Babasaheb to take complete rest. Babasaheb, please take rest. You have achieved so much. You have written the constitution that safeguarded the rights of your own people and other backward class communities, women, and all the oppressed people. Please take rest at least enough. You have sacrificed so much already. It was an ideal time for Babasaheb to retire from his active public life to focus solely on his rapidly deteriorating health. As I said, he did everything he could to protect the rights of his people, the sovereignty of this great country, by writing a constitution. But still, he was not satisfied. He could have obliged to the request of doctors and well-wishers, but he did not. After 1951, after finishing the task of writing the constitution, he began writing new books with an increased enthusiasm, like Revolution and Counter-Revolution, Riddles in Hinduism, Buddha and his Dhamma, his magnum opus, and many more, the cost of his valuable health. This worsened his existing health problems like diabetes, hypertension, neuritis, etc. He even had a cataract surgery to his eye. This is the original picture of Dr. Ambedkar coming to Bombay after having his cataract surgery performed. Speaking about the condition of his eyes, Dr. Savitrimai Ambedkar noted his eyes had become so bad after all the reading and writing that the power of his lenses could change every few months. He would often say in agitation, "What will happen to me? What would be the purpose of living if I can't read and write?" This is the horrifying context in which Babasaheb wrote all these books. Lengthy books. These books are not even like 100 pages or 150 pages. Each book is nearly 450 plus pages. And in this context of deteriorating health, he has written these books. Why did Dr. Ambedkar sacrifice his valuable health to write these books? And look at this image. This is the image taken roughly in 55 or 56. Look how fragile he has become. It's very emotional actually to even look at Babasaheb like this. We need to ask this question very seriously. This is the question. Why did Dr. Ambedkar sacrifice his valuable health to write the books? This is the question that we need to ponder over with serious attention. And this is something that needs to be repeated every day, every time. Because ultimately we need this consciousness, a guiding force, an impetus to start reading his books. He wanted to speak to his people after his death. through his writings, so that we people can benefit from his everlasting wisdom. In this context, is it not our responsibility to spend at least 30 minutes for daily life, 30 minutes, to read the works of our emancipated Dr. Babasaheb Ambedkar? Please ask this question to yourself. You might have observed the previous slides, the context in which he was working. Ask this question. He should have ideally taken the rest, and he would have actually lived at least 10 to 12 years. He would have touched his 70s, probably, if he had taken rest and all. So his passed away very quickly because he was preoccupied writing the books, so that us, the coming generations, the farthest point of posterity, can benefit from his wisdom. Please consider this question and ask yourself as to why I'm not reading. This is something that we need to, ponder over, grasp with, fight with. Now, I'll just finish the session in 10 minutes. Please bear with me. It's very important to understand the real meaning of educate in the popular slogan of Babasaheb: educate, agitate, and organize. What does the term educate means? In popular parlance, the word educate is equated to literacy. So if you are literate, that means if you got a degree, master's, PhD, or any other degree, you are a literate person. So now you are educated. So people think that when Babasaheb said educate, he was saying people to get degrees. It's partly true. The real meaning is something else. There is a world of difference between being literate and being educated. And what it is to get educated. I'll quote the words of Babasaheb Ambedkar himself. He says, the power, the privileged classes, rests upon lies which are sedulously propagated among the masses. He says, the power of oppressors is built on the foundation of lies and untruth. Babasaheb says, no resistance to power is possible while the sanctioning lies which justify that power are accepted as valid. While the lie, which is the first and the chief line of defense, remains unbroken, there can be no revolt. Then Babasaheb says, before any injustice, any abuse or oppression can be resisted, the lie upon which it is founded must be unmasked, must be clearly recognized for what it is. This can happen only with education. This is the broadest sense in which he defined education. And this is what he meant when he said educate, agitate, and organize. For example, how this entire thing works. Example of an untruth. People say, usually to the suffering masses, that you're living in abject poverty because you have committed sins in your previous life. We hear this thing, right? You are suffering with poverty. You are subjected to ignominies of the worst sort because you have committed sins in your previous life. And as long as people believe this lie, they'll continue to get exploited and the oppressors will get benefited. The power structure remains intact. Therefore, attacking the lie that justifies discrimination and injustice is the first step towards ensuring justice. And to rephrase the entire thing, true education means, very, very important. True education means the knowledge required to first identify the untruth and lies that justify the injustice and discrimination, and second, the destruction of lies and untruth, the help of truth, remove suffering. I repeat it again. It's very important. True education means the knowledge required to first identify the untruth and lies that justify the injustice and discrimination. Second, the destruction of lies and untruth with the help of truth, remove suffering. And the writings of Babasaheb and his speeches are nothing but a treasure trove of this true knowledge. Dr. Ambedkar has exposed all the types and forms of lies and untruths, all the untruths that have been used throughout the ages justify discrimination and exploitations of the worst sort, and he even actually offered solutions to fight them. Naturally, if we do not equip people with this knowledge base, they will fall into this trap of lies incessantly again and again and gets exploited on an augmented scale. That's why it says history repeats. So when you don't equip people with this knowledge base, they'll get exploited. They'll fall into this trap and they'll get exploited incessantly again and again. The cycle repeats. That is the value of education. Therefore, it becomes our responsibility as citizens of this great nation to not only read the works of Babasaheb, but to disseminate them to the masses as much as possible to make our India more equitable and rational. Only then we can become the superpower. We cannot become superpower if majority of the population are subjected to discrimination and when they are completely denied access to the true knowledge. We can't prosper. We want to become the real true power, true superpower. We need to have this knowledge to be disseminated the last way. So this, as we saw, the representation of how power of oppressors are maintained by these lies and untruth. And if this pen can be taken as a metaphor of true education, this is how it works. Attaining true education and utilizing it properly can collapse the entire power structure, and the life of Dr. Ambedkar bears ample testimony to it. With his knowledge, he has collapsed this power structure. All these people, the untouchable community, the backward classes, the scheduled tribes, who were thrown out of the society, are now getting their rightful share slowly. It's not completely achieved, but that process, that path has been created by Babasaheb because he has this knowledge. And that's why he said knowledge is power. It was first used by Francis Bacon, but that's true. Knowledge is power. Again, as I said, knowledge is not simply synonymous with being literate. You can have masters, PhDs, double PhDs, but still, if you do not read Babasaheb and other emancipators, you're not educated. In fact, a literate who is not equipped with the knowledge of Babasaheb will be very dangerous and detrimental to society. That's why it's essential to equip our people with this necessary knowledge base so that they can resist the injustice and humiliations which they are subjected almost on a daily basis. This is the real meaning of educate in the slogan of educate, agitate, and organize. And this is the same sense in which Buddha has used these phrases. Know truth as truth and untruth as untruth. So that you can identify the lie that sanctions this injustice and discrimination. And you can fight that indiscrimination with the help of truth. Naturally, Kabir, the great poet, great radical poet, understood this wisdom of Buddha and made it a part of his radical poetry. When Jyotiba read Kabir, it inspired him to form Satyashodak Samaj. Many people do not know this fact. One of the chief inspirations to form such a Samaj was taken from Kabir, because Jyotiba was reading Kabir and he was listening to the couplets of Kabir being sung in the different places. He got inspired. He was like, wow, this is what I am searching for, the answers. So he got inspired from Kabir and formed Satyashodak Samaj. Unsurprisingly, Babasaheb considered three of them, Buddha, Kabir, and Jyotiba Phule, as his gurus and reiterated the fact that knowledge is one of the important forms of power that can be used to demolish the power of the privileged classes. This is the real sense in which used the term educate. And we know the consequences of not having this education. And it has been very well summarized by Mahatma Phule when he said, without education, the education means the sense in which we have understood in the last slides. Without education, wisdom was lost. Without wisdom, morals were lost. Without morals, development was lost. Without development, wealth was lost. Without wealth, the Shudras were ruined. So much has happened. The lack of education. These are the powerful words of Mahatma Phule. And this is what happens. It's what happening also. We're not educated in the sense that we have discussed so far. We're only trained to become an army of literates without any sense of knowledge and education. Naturally, we're not able to guide ourselves and also the society in need. That's why it's essential to read the works of Babasaheb Ambedkar, get ourselves equipped with true knowledge. Finally, I'm going to conclude. I'm sorry if I've taken so much of time. So there are two important questions which I'm going to deal in a very quick succession. Firstly, people usually ask me, there are 24 volumes of Dr. Ambedkar's writings and speeches that have been published so far. For all the 23 volumes of writings and speeches, what is the volume that I should start reading first? Where should I even begin? This is a natural question, can be completely understandable. Second, where will I find the books of Dr. Ambedkar online? Let us see the first one. As we saw, Babasaheb has written books on economics, law and politics, history, anthropology and sociology, and comparative religion. A person, if he or she checks this chart, that person will be naturally confused, like, where should I even start? Because every book is a world in itself. So my suggestion is, of all these books, please start with this magnificent book called as Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Ancient India. Why am I suggesting you to begin with Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Ancient India? I'll tell you the reasons. In this book, Dr. Ambedkar offers an extraordinary perspective on the following events of history. It's very important that we know these facts because these facts form the foundation of our knowledge on which everything else can be built. That's why I'm suggesting this book. The first event that Dr. Ambedkar discusses is that what was the condition of Indian society before the birth of Buddha? This is a very important question, very significant question. If you do not understand this question and the answer, you'll not understand the greatness of Buddhism. Second, the enormous influence of Buddha on Indian society, on social, religious, and political aspects. This is the magnificent picture, statue of Buddha, which belongs to the Gandhara art. My friend Dikshita, she can correct me if I'm wrong. Babasaheb says, speaking about the enormous influence of Buddha, he says, the elevation of the status of the Shudras and women was so much the result of the gospel of Buddhism that Buddhism was called by its enemies as the Shudra religion. लोग कहते थे कि ये शूद्रों का धर्म है. Why? Because Babasaheb says, in the old pre-Buddha days, Shudras cannot become priests. Women, if they get married, they cannot divorce. They could not participate in intellectual activities. But after the rise of Buddhism, owing to the great teachings of Buddha, the Shudras could not only become priests in the Bhikkhu order, the Bhikkhu Sangha, they could also even become kings like Ashoka. Women could marry and also could give divorce if the husband is very cruel. And they could get access to education and learning. There's a very famous collection of poems of Buddhist women called Theravada. You see the names of those women. They're all from different backgrounds and communities. This is the degree of freedom that Buddhism provided Shudras and women. Naturally, the enemies of Buddhism will call it Shudra religion. Shudron ka dharma hai, or apavitra hai. So that is the significance of Buddhism. And you won't find this information in any other history books or any books. In fact, you'll find bad information about Buddhism. It's like Buddhism did not contribute anything. Because we know the writers who write these books comes from those communities who hate Buddha. That's why to know the true history, we have to read the books written by our people, particularly Dr. Ambedkar. That's the most important thing. Thirdly, in this book, Babasaheb also discusses about this very interesting question. Who are these Nagas? Are they really snakes? Because the literature says that they are snakes, that they're very dangerous snakes. Or are they really snakes or are they humans? After scanning the literature, Babasaheb concludes by proving that Nagas are a human community with rich cultural heritage, and that it was Nagas who made relentless efforts to spread Buddhism throughout the country. Interestingly, Dr. Ambedkar informed us in his conversion speech that he gave on 15th of October 1956 in front of the followers of more than 7 lakhs. He said, the ancestors of untouchables were Nagas. And this fascinating fact has been transformed into a visual spectacle by Paranjit in his movie Tangalan. I know I've discussed this in the last session as well, but I could not resist in praising Paranjit for translating this epic vision of Dr. Ambedkar into visual spectacle. I hope it will release on OTT very soon. Please see the movie if you haven't seen. It shows the interesting and intricate links that connect today's untouchables, Nagas of the past, and that of the Buddhism. And Vikram and Malavika Parvati, they have done tremendous action, and you have to see the movie. And salutes to Paranjit for this extraordinary depiction of the true history on the Indian cinema screen. And this is one of the sculptures that is found in a place called Amaravati, which is in today's Andhra Pradesh. You'll find all these figures. They're Nagas. You'll find many such sculptures across the countries, where everywhere Nagas are there protecting Buddha. So we Nagas are the real protectors of Buddhism. That's something that we need to remember. And of course, in the book, Babasaheb also discusses about the everlasting glory of Ashoka and other Mauryan emperors. And we know this is the one of the rare rock images or sculptures of Ashoka, which was found originally at a place called Jagaipeta, which is in the state of Andhra Pradesh. This sculpture is now found in the Museum of Madras or Chennai. And this is one of the rarest images of Babasaheb observing the Sarnath emblem, which is the lion capital. This was, the entire thing was made during the reign of Ashoka. And you can see here, Babasaheb was in a very weak condition, actually taken in this chair so that he could see all those, extraordinary sculptures and depictions of our great history. And it is said, it was noted by Dr. Savitrimai Ambedkar that in this museum, Babasaheb also spotted a rock edict of Ashoka. Immediately, he asked his followers to lift him up. He went near the edict and hugged it and cried emotionally. That was the enormous degree of affection and connection that he had for Buddhism and Buddhist history, Ashoka, and other things. And finally, and most importantly, in this book, you'll also see the reasons for the fall of Buddhism, the rise of a very dangerous person, Vishamitra Shunga, and the writings of Manusmriti. Many other things are discussed in that book by Dr. Ambedkar. Please start with that book, and I'm sure that definitely you will be able to navigate the entire rest of the literature of Babasaheb. As I said, this book forms you that foundation on which you can build the rest of the structure, knowledge structure. And next, where will I find the books of Dr. Ambedkar? Online. I'm going to demonstrate it because last time when I told the name of the website, many people could not actually visit that fascinating website. So I'm going to demonstrate how to use it. I'm going to take only few minutes. Sorry, I don't know if I've taken so much of time. Step 1. Type baws.in on Google to open the website of baws.in. I'm going to demonstrate it. And Ritesh bhai, please tell me if I'm able to share this thing. Are you able to see this?
Yep,
Yes,
you're able to see it.
yes, perfectly.
Okay, good. So if you type, please don't laugh because there are many people who wants to know these details. If you type baws.in on Google, you get the website. Superb website.
We are not seeing the browser, we are seeing the PPT.
Yes, bhai. Only the PPT. Not able
Oh,
to see the
okay.
browser.
Okay. One second. I'm sorry for that. I think one second.
You may have to share your screen or share the presentation. Yeah.
One second.
He's already sharing the screen, I guess. Yeah, he's already sharing the screen.
But what you can do is please remove me from that sharing the screen option so that I will do that again.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not. No, he's just sharing the PowerPoint, not the screen. Try sharing the whole screen, or when you see the share button, Dr. Sairam, at the middle, when you click on that at the bottom, you should be able to select your browser.
Oh my God. Okay. Sorry for the inconvenience. Just 1 minute. I'm going to show you that important demonstration. So where is this?
Okay.
I think he had. Please be on standby. I think Dr. Sairam had some.
Yeah.
She should be back. Ridesh, in the meanwhile, can you share from your screen?
Uh, just a second. Let me see what I can do.
I think Dr. Sairam is back. Dr. Sairam, can you hear me? You should be able to unmute yourself.
Yeah, he's the host.
Yeah, just
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I audible now?
yeah. We
Yeah,
can.
but you're not visible, Dr. Sairam.
Oh,
Your camera's
I-
out.
it's okay. No problem. So just give me a second. I hope you're able to see the screen. Is it okay now?
Dr. Ambedkar,
It's coming up.
Dr. Sairam has started sharing screen. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
perfect.
Perfectly.
Perfect. Right. Okay. So sorry for the inconvenience. I'm not that good when it comes to these technical things. So go to Google, type baws.in. This is our website. So आपको ये मिलेगा. The first thing you click on it, and this is this wonderful website where you get the books and writings of Dr. Ambedkar online in the PDF format. You can read them online. So this is the website. You can scroll down to see each and every book. So we have Caste in India, Annihilation of Caste, and all the books of Dr. Ambedkar arranged, in a very interesting format based on the timeline. So we were discussing about the book called as Revolution, Counter-Revolution, right? So you scroll down, and yes, here is the book. You just click that book, right? Great. So you can zoom in. And this is the book, Revolution and Counter-Revolution in Ancient India. And you can just go to the next page, and this is a list of contents. See how interesting the contents are. Dr. Ambedkar begins with Ancient India on exhumation, gives you the facts of history before the birth of Buddha. Then he talks about the Aryan society, the degraded nature of that society, how priesthood was completely sunken, and how reformers like Gautam Buddha have changed everything, and then fall of Buddhism, and everything else is discussed. This is a very, very important book. As I said, this is the book which helps you build a foundation on which everything else can be constructed. So this is how you open this website and navigate the required books that you wanted to read. So we have the list of all the books here. So, and I think, are you able to see this thing? Okay, 1 second. Great. I think, is it visible?
Yep.
Okay, we have seen the demonstration. As I said, go to Google, type the name of the website, baws.in, and open the website. You'll find the list of all the books and writings and speeches of Dr. Ambedkar arranged in a very deep manner. You can explore any book you want to write. But as I said, please start with Revolution, Counter-Revolution. Get that important and significant foundation. And most importantly, please follow baws.in on social media to get regular updates. Because what happens is, last time when I did the session, many people got excited and they actually wanted to read the books of Babasaheb. But after a period of time, they forgot. Of course, I understand many of them are busy. But if you subscribe, if you follow our social media platforms on Instagram, on WhatsApp, and on Twitter, you'll get these updates regularly so that you can get reminded of the fact that you need to explore the writings of Dr. Ambedkar. I hope everyone has mobile phones with them right now. Please, if you have Instagram, follow the account. If you have WhatsApp, please open the WhatsApp channels and you can find our channel. If you're on Twitter, please follow the Twitter handle. It's very important because you'll get the regular updates. Every day, VAWS.in team shares very interesting excerpts from the writings of Babasaheb. Completely, unique perspectives on Indian society, Indian history. You'll get fascinated while reading those texts. So follow these social media platforms to get regular updates. And yes, if you open WhatsApp, I think most people use WhatsApp, particularly our parents and their generation. So if you go to WhatsApp and you'll find this channel, option or a label on the top. And if you type BAWS, you'll get our channel. So please subscribe and join this channel. And I request BAWS.in team, please share the link of Revolution of Counter-Revolution in that channel so that those who have joined now can save that link and can read the book later. So please join this very important channel to get regular updates. And our team is going to now share the link of Revolution Counter-Revolution in that channel. You can join the channel and open the link and start your process of exploring the great writings of Dr. Ambedkar. And finally, I'd like to conclude by reiterating the words of Dr. Ambedkar, who says, if there is one lesson that you must learn from my life, it is this, that I have never disowned my community. I have been proud in sharing their happiness and misery all throughout my life and will continue to do so. This, in his one of his speeches, Dr. Ambedkar said that this is the spiritual bond that he had with this community. Every one of us must have the spiritual bond with our community. Having the spiritual bond is not casteist or communal. Our community is not so developed, so progressed and reached pinnacles of economic order. Still, most of us are poor. Most of us not educated. We're suffering with disabilities of the worst sort. That is why this community bond, which is a spiritual bond, is important so that we can grow together. That's the most important thing that we need to learn from the life of Dr. Ambedkar. This is his final message. He says, if there is one lesson we must learn, that it is that I have been proud in sharing their happiness and misery all throughout my life and will continue to do so. Yes, thank you so much. And I'm sorry, I think I've taken so much of time. Please excuse me. And thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Saab, for your time. And it was I lack my words to, uh, the entire session was so good. I mean, it was an excellent presentation and a splendid, the way you spoke. I mean, you were so composed. Can we please see you, Vai? Can you please open your camera, Vai?
I'm actually, okay.
Yeah,
Can you see
yeah.
me now?
Yeah. So it was an excellent presentation, bhai. I mean, you were so composed in the entire presentation. I was just wondering about the same. And thank you so much, bhai. And many people commented on the where are you gathering or collecting all these rare images. So Dr. Sairam shared us that he spent hours in the library in the archive while searching for 2 3 photos, so he can get and use it in his presentation. So that's the efforts he is taking for these lectures. So thank you so much, and thank you so much to the team of BAWS and Ambedkar International Center USA. Yes. So we will ask we will open to questions whoever wants to ask any questions to Dr. Sairam, please raise your hand. We'll open for that. If anyone wants to ask anything, please raise your hand. Yeah, Mahendra. Okay.
Mahendra Bhau, please unmute yourself. You should be able to unmute.
Yeah, you would be able to unmute yourself. Please unmute yourself and you can speak. Mahendra, are you able to unmute yourself?
No,
Hey,
no, Ridesh, I think.
JB, friends, can you
Okay,
hear me?
sure.
Yeah.
All right, okay. Okay, Dr. Sairam, excellent presentation as always.
Thank
Quick
you.
question. We all know that Babasaheb used to consider Rashtrapita Jyotirao Phule as one of his gurus. But would you be able to throw some light on Jyotirao Phule and his relation with Shivaji Maharaj? As in, what was his thoughts and how he used to look up to Shivaji Maharaj? Please, thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking your time to listen to this entire presentation. Deeply grateful for that. And regarding the question on Jyotiba Phule and Shivaji, it's a very interesting topic actually. And I think people from Maharashtra might know this fact, but particularly non-Maharashtrians like me, I'd like to tell you that the samadhi of Shivaji was discovered by Jyotiba Phule. Many people are not aware of this fact, particularly the non-Maharashtrians. Jyotiba Phule had read the local accounts of Shivaji Maharaj and found that this is the spot where the samadhi is present, and he has actually went to that spot and unearthed the samadhi of Chhatrapati Shivaji. And if I'm not wrong, I'm not from Maharashtra, so I can't tell it with certainty, but I remember reading that uh, Jyotiba is one of the first people to write ballads on Shivaji, and it's also one of the first attempts made in Marathi to write or to compose such formats of literature ballads. So if you, I think I can share the link of that works. So Jyotiba had written a very wonderful poem on Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. It's a very lengthy poem in which he narrated the entire life and great social activities of Shivaji Maharaj. That is the relationship. And it was actually Jyotiba who started celebrating the festivals of Shivaji. Later, Tilak has appropriated these things and you know put a show that as if he's the one who founded the entire thing. But it was Jyotiba Phule who discovered the Samadhi, who loved Chhatrapati Shivaji very much, and who got so much inspired from his life and legacy. And he did his best to popularize the ideas of Shivaji Maharaj. That's all I can tell because मराठी में बहुत ज़्यादा information available है लेकिन मुझे मराठी नहीं आती. So I wish to learn it soon, but this is what I know. So I'm just sharing with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. One quick follow-up, if I'm allowed to.
Please.
Yes. Okay. Exceptional. Yes, what you're saying is absolutely correct. That's how we look up to Shivaji Maharaj and Jyotirao Phule and how he used to look up to him. One more thing is that father of the nation, Jyotirao Phule. I mean, I think that's a very. It feels like that's a very right title for him because he has been the originator of liberation of Indian women and Indian suppressed class altogether by opening the doors of education to all of them, and that has been the actual step towards recreating the nation. So that seems to be the right title for him. But coincidentally, unfortunately, he has been kind of addressed as Mahatma, which appears to be kind of a counter to his movement. He has been the big supporter and kind of celebrator of Satya Shodhak Samaj, which is true, sticking to the truth and scientific approach. He has been the entrepreneur as well. And all his life, he has been kind of working towards and unraveling the truth. And we all know that Atma is a fictional and fictitious kind of a concept. So I think it doesn't make sense for him to be addressed with that title, though that is pretty popular. So what are your thoughts about it?
No. I think last session someone else has asked the same question. So my answer is that the word Mahatma has been used in a generic sense, not in the literal sense of great soul. I think you're equating that word soul with, that anthropology phenomena where person dies, जो भी आत्मा उनके अंदर होते हैं वो बाहर जाते हैं. That is not the sense in which the word Mahatma has been used. It is a generic sense in which it is used, like it's a great soul. In fact, Babasaheb had no objection to that because if you remember my previous slides, in his dedication, he writes clearly Mahatma Jotiba Phule. In fact, in most of his speeches, he began by saying, Mahatma, Mahatma, Mahatma. So I don't personally think that, we should take it literally to mean that, Atma kuch hai, something like that. I think it is used in a general. Exactly, my friend, my by Vinesh Niba rightly says, it means enlightenment. Exactly. That is the sense in which it is used originally.
We'll move towards other questions, and
Sure.
it's already 11:14, and we are taking lot of time of Dr. Sairam. So
I'm
Umesh
sorry
wants
for
to
taking
ask
so much of
anything.
time.
Umesh wants to ask. Please unmute yourself and ask. And if any other person, any other participant wants to ask, please raise your hand.
Thank you, Dr. Sairam, for a wonderful, insightful, and profound lecture. We have lot of literature available with us, and as per your research, and it's hats off and salute to you. What
Thank you, sir.
makes Dr. Sairam to think like that and to throw the light and to take this mashal? In Urdu, there is one phrase and one शेर is there. रगों में दौड़ते फिरने के हम नहीं कायल, जब आंख ही से ना टपका तो फिर लहू क्या है. So such kind of zeal I am looking and seeing in your personality, and what is the U-turn in that so that it can inspire a lot of youth around the world. Thank you so much, Dr. Please, please show some light.
Sure. Thank you so much, sir, for that wonderful comment and also reciting the Shair. I don't know the exact reason, sir, but I think it came, it's a natural outcome of my curiosity. That's what I feel. Because when I read the works of Jyotiba or Dr. Ambedkar, particularly the biographies that are written on both these extraordinary people, I always found it to be deficient because it's all like biographies are written as if it's just a collection of timeline. Like in 1891, Babasaheb was born. In 1913, he went to Columbia. So I feel biography is not just a recollection of timeline. There must be something more. So I think like this. So when Babasaheb went to Columbia, so this is how I usually imagine. So he boarded on a ship and then he landed in a place in Italy, and then he went to Colombia. So this is how I think. Like this is the first time that an individual who was born and brought up, was grown up in Bombay, is now going to America. So what would be the reaction? वो शिप कैसा होता है? वो ट्रैवलिंग में अटलांटिक ओशन को क्रॉस करता है. And I read in one of the old reports of weather of USA that there were heavy storms when he was traveling to USA. So how did Baba Sahib react? हमको आंसर्स नहीं है बट थोड़ा इमेजिनेशन करना पड़ता है. So I think this curiosity is the natural outcome of whenever I read books. मुझे लगता है कि यह नहीं लिखा है, so I wanted to explore more. So I remember Toni Morrison or someone was saying that if you find that a book must be written, it is not written, you need to take the efforts to write it. So I think मेरे केस में भी शायद ऐसा ही है. So I'm more curious to find even the minutest of details. So उसका रीजन पता नहीं है.
जी जी,
Thank you, thank you
मैं
so much.
समझ सकता हूँ. आई कैन अंडरस्टैंड कि ये जो जज्बा है और ये जज्बात हैं, ये यूं ही नहीं उमड़ के आ जाते हर किसी के दिलो जहन में. 140 करोड़ में हमारी संख्या आपको पता है, और हाउ मेनी पीपल आर थिंकिंग ऑन द सेम वेवलेंथ एंड सेम लाइन ऑफ लेंथ. ये हमारे पास एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है. दैट वी विल कवर इट अप. थैंक यू डॉक्टर साहब, थैंक यू सो मच.
Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Sandeep bhai, you want to say something or ask something?
Yeah,
Yes,
but
bhai.
before me, I think Gautam Mohite is in the queue.
Sorry?
Yeah, I ask
Gautam.
Gautam bhai has raised a hand. He's ahead of me. He can ask his question.
Yeah. Gautam, please ask. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Dr. Sairam, in the beginning of the presentation, I heard that you have spent a lot of time and effort in finding out books and literature which Mahatma Jotiba Phule had written. So, is there any sort of like volumes and speeches kind of thing which you're planning to make available, which was written by Jyotirao Phule?
Yeah. So actually, Jyotiba had actually written more than 15 books, and of course, many other pamphlets. So all of them are uh, collected and published by the Maharashtra government in 2 volumes. We don't find those volumes in hardcover copies. Luckily, PDFs are available, and maybe I don't know how to share them. But what I can do is I can share my email. So please drop an email. I can share you the PDFs. So we have 2 volumes of complete writings of Mahatma Phule in English. In Marathi, you have the complete set, even the unpublished
Okay.
ones. I did not read them because it's in Marathi. So it's actually a very fat volume, I think almost 750 plus pages. Uh, Mahatma Phule Sangralaya or something like that. I forgot the name. So in that you'll find the complete collection of writings and speeches of Mahatma Jotiba Phule, including his red letters. So yeah, that book you can get it in Maharashtra. If you are in Pune, there is a place called as Photo Jinko where you'll get all these books. Yeah.
Okay. Actually, I'm like from Karnataka. I can
Ah,
like read Marathi little bit. So like if
okay.
you could send me that, it would be great. Both in English and
Definitely.
Marathi. I'll try to.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Mahatma Jyotiba Phule Samagra Vagmaya. Yeah. Yes. Thank you. Thank you,
Okay.
Gautam bhai.
Sure.
And
Thank you,
Dr.
Sairam.
Sairam, there has been many comments and comments for you in chats. You should definitely go through it. I mean, they are awesome. And
Thank you.
yeah, Sandeep
Thank
bhai.
you, everyone.
Um,
Hello.
yeah, thanks, Dr.
Hello.
Sairam, as always, wonderful session. Um, One thing that really stuck to me was this incident you narrated with the picture in the end, where Babasaheb is inspecting the land capital, and then he sees an Ashokan pillar. He asks his people to take him there, and he hugs it, and then he cries. To me, that incident, that almost 2,350 years of history, um, is in that moment when he's hugging that pillar and he's crying. All those emotions that Babasaheb must have gone through, right? We read Babasaheb and we read his books and in his writings and speeches, but what we don't always get from that are those human elements. He was a human being at the end of the day, right? And as you said, for 15 days without sleep, he was going on working. This incident that you narrated, this is the first time I heard about something like that, where he's hugging and he's crying and he's so emotional. So my question is there a compilation or sources where you're getting these nuggets? Because writings and speeches we get, but to learn more about the person that Babasaheb was and these extremely powerful incidents, right? Because this is not just a mundane incident that happens in his life. He's like, that moment, as I'm trying to imagine, must have been so powerful. 2,400 years of history right there. And he's imagining those things. It's very powerful. So where can we learn about similar such incidents and similar such nuggets of Baba Saheb's life?
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much, Sandeep bhai. And before answering your question, I'd like to tell everyone that I've received extraordinary degree of support from Sandeep bhai in this whole process. He's actually guided me on many stages on how to present and the mode of presentation and all. So thank you so much, Sandeep bhai, for that kind support and encouragement. Truly indebted to you. And regarding your question, uh, I think there are a few sources which we can explore to find more about these details that are usually forgotten. So the particular incident that I narrated in the session in which you're referring to was taken from the book written by Dr. Savitrimai Ambedkar. So it is recently published in English also. I know that there are some issues in that book that has been raised by many people, but it contains a very interesting and valuable information on the personal life and details of Dr. Ambedkar. So I think it was translated by Nadim Hasneen or someone in English. You'll find that book. It is called Babasaheb. You can simply type Dr. Ambedkar and Savitrimai Ambedkar. You'll get that book. Maybe I can share the link. So that book contains so many interesting details. I'll tell you one more detail. So in the very same book, uh, she narrates how Dr. Ambedkar toured different parts of North India, particularly 1956. So this is after his conversion. So conversion, as you know, happened in October 56. So in November he went to Nepal to give a speech, and after that he visited many places of Uttar Pradesh, Bihar, and he visited all those places where Buddha has walked. And Savita Ambedkar ji narrates so many touching incidents of Dr. Ambedkar getting emotional because he knew that he might not live maybe for the next year. So this is his last sight of those great ancient stupas and monuments where Buddha has actually walked. So she narrates many such incidents, very intimate details and personal, and it's very emotional. As you rightly said, it's the human aspect that is very important. And that is one book where you can find many such interesting details. Second is the letters of Dr. Ambedkar. Unfortunately, in BAWS, you won't find all these letters. So there's a volume called Volume 23 or 22, where you have a collection of letters. But there is another book published by a Punjabi press. Last time we were discussing about it, Bailey sir. So that book has a collection of so many rare letters of Babasaheb. I'll tell you one more interesting thing if there is a time, just 1 minute. So in 1931, Babasaheb went to Roundtable Conference at London. So in this process, he has to travel through the Red Sea, capital of Egypt, Cairo, and all. So we know that Egypt is famous for pyramids at Giza and other places. So Babasaheb has actually dropped at Cairo and he went to see all the pyramids. It's a fascinating thing. We know that pyramids are considered one of the seven wonders of the world. So I'm not wrong. But to imagine to visualize Babasaheb visiting those epic places and spending the time in that region is truly fascinating. So you'll find such details in letters. So as I said, the books written by Dr. Savita Ambedkar and associates of Babasaheb like Rattu sir. Rattu sir, I think he has written 3 or 4 books, Reminiscences of Babasaheb or My Last Days with Baba, something like that. So if you read those books, Dr. Savita Ambedkar ka, Rattu sir ka, and the letters of Babasaheb that he wrote to his friends, you'll get all these interesting details. It's very fascinating details. And last, one more thing, and I will close this thing. So there's a one more person called as extraordinary person called as Dr. Namdev Nimgade. He's from Maharashtra, I think Nagpur. So he went to Babasaheb with a marriage card. So Babasaheb got angry. He's like, "You're too young. Why are you getting married? You have a lot of time to study, settle. Only then think of marriage." It's a valuable suggestion. He scolded this young man, Namdev Nimgade. But ultimately, at the end, Babasaheb was a kind person. We know that. Initially, he's angry, but ultimately, he's like, okay, I wish you all success for your marriage. Then Namdev Nimgade sir has actually, asked Babasaheb to write something on the wedding card so that he can show it to his friends and family. And Babasaheb at the time was suffering with severe aching pain in the hand. He was writing so much and he could not even hold a pen. At that time, he told a very interesting thing. He said, Ramdev, go to my library in the so and so section. You'll find a Marathi translation done by me of the Ashokan Index. You take it as my words of Ashoka as my words, and you consider that as a gift from me, and you display it in the wedding procession and create this atmosphere that yes, this is the religion that we are going to embrace in the coming future. So Ashoka features so many times life of Babasaheb. So I'm sorry for extending the question, but yes, to simplify again, books of associates of Babasaheb and Dr. Savita Ambedkar's book, letters written by Babasaheb, you'll get so much of information. I'll send you the list.
Mhm.
Thank
Hello.
you, Sairam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I can't find this uh, sorry reaction, so I couldn't raise my hand. Therefore, I just unmute myself and wanted to share some words. I'm Santosh Raut. I'm teaching at Harvard at the moment for 2 years. I just wanted
Hello,
to,
sir.
yeah, I wanted to appreciate Sairam how wonderful you presented the information, your analysis, and also the way you uh, read in between the lines was so important. The wisdom and the information that the way it fleshed out is wonderfully done. I just wanted to compliment on your presentation, and of course take on Shivaji Maharaj by both teachers. One is a guru and one is a teacher, if I may say so. One teacher on Shivaji Maharaj by Keluskar Guruji, and Mahatma Phule is very interesting area to unfold, which eventually has connection with also the recent sort of Bhima Koregaon controversy that has been erected, and how Sambhaji Maharaj Samadhi was also probably found by Jotiba Phule. That was wonderful. And I don't know, I will try my best if I can share my interview with Vamanrao Godboleji, which I have taken in 1998, where he was traveling with Baba Saheb during that time. And he also visited Bodh Gaya, Kushinara, and cried there at the feet of the Buddha. There are very so much touching stories. But apart from this information, the way you unfolded the connection and the fleshing out that life of Baba Sahib, human life of Baba Sahib, was wonderfully done. So I have no
Thanks.
question as such, but I really wanted to appreciate you and congratulate you for sharing this all the participant, and I hope it will be posted and many people can hear it. Thank you very much for this.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for those amazingly kind words. And I was actually scared to invite you directly. I know that we are part of a group, so that is
Yeah.
why I've sent the message in the group. And thank you so much, sir, for taking your time to attend this session, and it truly means a lot to me.
No, and if anything I can do from I'm Marathi speaking background, and I will be very happy to share and contribute and support your research, whatever you have further endeavors. So please, we'll stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Okay, so I mean it's already 11:34. So if someone has genuine questions, please do ask. And
Bye. I see two people raising the hand. Milind
yeah.
Patil, bye.
So
And,
yeah, Salve and Milan Patil. Please, if you have a question, then please ask. And then we will wrap up. We won't take much time of Dr. Sairam. I mean, it's been more than 3 hours now. I guess 3 hours. Yeah.
no. Frankly speaking, I can talk, but it depends upon the listeners and their levels of
Yeah.
interest. I can talk, no problem.
Still, why? Also, you please do have a sip. I mean, water.
Yeah,
You
sure.
have been speaking for so many, several hours. Yeah. So yeah. Yes, Milan Patil. Yes, please ask. Please unmute yourself.
Hello. First of all, am I audible, Sairam?
Yeah, it's fine.
You are audible, please, sir.
Yeah. So first of all, thank you very much for this wonderful session. So I wanted to ask that you mentioned about biographies of Jyotiba Phule, right? And you said that so many facts were excluded in these biographies. So do you think is there any kind of appropriation or distortion in these biographies of Jyotiba
Absolutely.
Phule?
Thank you.
Like this is the case with the Babasaheb Ambedkar. We see from Kher Mode to Teltumde, right? So is this the case with Jyotiba Phule also?
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Milind Bhai, for that very um, important question. And I must say that Milind Bhai is one of my good friends. And I can also say, I can disclose this information that he's translating the biography of V.C. Kamble sir into English. So to get that question from a translator who is working on biography is a very interesting one. So to answer your first question, I mean, the first part of it, definitely there is a huge distortion that has been done in the biographies of Jyotiba Phule. If you take the example of Dhananjay, I find him to be very, very problematic because, first of all, his references are very, very, I mean, how can you say? They're not, cannot be trusted. They're not trustworthy. That's the first part. Second, the kind of conclusions that he draw are equally dangerous. So I find that if anyone is reading the biography of Jyotiba or Babasaheb written by Dhananjay, please don't read it. It's a very, very dangerous book. The kind of references that he used, the kind of conclusions he has drawn are completely dangerous. Please avoid that book. And secondly, the same thing is done by this Marathi biographer Kairmode. I have not read the Marathi works, but I was told by many of my good friends like Milind and others that Kairmode has actually corrupted a great deal of, Babasaheb's original thoughts in his biographies. And unfortunately, this book has been considered as the reliable source to know the life and works of Babasaheb. For example, it's told by my friend Milind, who is an authority on these biographies, that Kairmode, in one of the chapters, describes the facial features of Dr. Ambedkar's mother. The first question is, Babasaheb in many occasions told that he did not remember how his mother used to look like. He was a small boy when his mother passed away. So how come Kairmode know all these details in a very elaborate fashion? So this itself is an indication that Kairmode is a very dangerous guy. Most of the information that he shared is nothing but a pure game of imagination. And now, with this basic information, if you are buying a book on Babasaheb, the biography on Babasaheb, you please see the references that have been cited. If that book contains many references from Dhananjay Keer or Kairmode, please don't buy that book, because it's nothing but a mere repetition of all those dangerous lies. And you have books written by Akash Singh Rathore and Anand Tiltumble. You contain so many references from these two people. And that's why those books belong to the genre of not trusting anything. So please don't read these books. And I'm actually reading this new biography written by Anand Tiltumble, which is a very, 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 I don't want to be sounding very harsh, but it's a very dangerous book. It was written in a very reckless manner. And if you read the book, you'll understand. And I'm wondering why all those people who have praised the book, I'm actually doubting those who praise the book. If you read the book, you'll get surprised. He's literally condemned Babasaheb without anything. So one instance, he says that, when Babasaheb was student in Elphinstone College, his family used to earn this amount of money. I forgot the exact figure. And then Anand Teltumle concludes by saying, these people come from upper middle class family. So why did they take scholarship from Sayajirao Gaikwad? This man has not even done a basic research. If you read the speeches of Babasaheb, he says when he was in the Elphinstone College, he did not even have proper clothes to wear. His teachers used to give the clothes, and they used to offer him money to buy the books. You please see volume 39 of Hindi. You'll find such speeches. So books are written. This is a new trend now. Please be aware of all these new trends and new biographies that are being written on Dr. Ambedkar. You should get this out. Why is it that suddenly in the last 10 or 15 years, these academics who have completely neglected Babasaheb, who have jettisoned him in a shameless manner, have now started suddenly saying that, Babasaheb Ambedkar is a great icon, we're writing books on it. This itself should, strike a question in our mind that these people are very dangerous and their books are equally dangerous. So I don't want to criticize much, but please be careful while reading all these books. I suggest you please don't buy these costly books, 600, 700. How can a common person even buy these books? Please tell me. Leave the affordability. The content of the books are very, very dangerous. That's what I wanted to suggest. So to answer the question of my friend Milind in a very crisp manner, yes, there have been great deal of distortions, both in the biographies of Jotiba Phule and Dr. Ambedkar. I find that Rosalind O'Hanlon book on Phule is comparatively better, and Gail Umvedit Man's book is also comparatively better. Personally speaking, even today we do not find a coherent authoritative biography on both Jotiba and Dr. Ambedkar. Every biography covers things impartially, and some books, as we discussed, like Anand Teltumble's dangerous book, they cover things in a very worst form, giving an impression that Dr. Ambedkar is actually a dangerous man. So please be aware of all these people. And yes, someone has commented something. So anyway, so yeah, distortions have been done and are doing deliberately. So please be aware. If you want to read about the life and writings of Babasaheb, what I suggest is I have actually written an article for our BAWS.in team where I've included the books written by Dr. Ambedkar in his speeches, both chronologically from 1916 to 1956 and thematically, like his works on Shudras, on untouchables, on constitutional reforms. So I'll post that link maybe now here in the comment section. So please see that article and use that article to read the life of Dr. Ambedkar as a timeline, don't rely on these biographies. This is my humble request. Please don't buy these books. Thank you so much, Milan Bhai, for that question. And
Thank you
I'm
so
now
much.
going to share that link. Hope you can see this. This is the article that I wrote for our BAWS team. You'll find that article in our WhatsApp channel. Please join the channel. You'll get the regular updates. Should not miss any of these regular updates. And explore that article and you'll get everything.
Thank you, Sairam, for the inputs and giving us all the warnings. And also on the Dhananjay Keer, Babasaheb also said that that book speaks a lot. I mean, it has many superficial things which even I don't know about my life. I think some a friend of mine told me this thing. And yeah, also please do subscribe to BAWS channel on YouTube. You will find this session of Sairam, today's session of Sairam, within a day or two, and then you can share it on your WhatsApp groups and your family groups who have missed this session. So please go and subscribe to BAWS YouTube channel. It's very important. This session will be recorded and shared, and yeah, that's it.
But I think there's one more question from
Vale.
one madam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will I please
Please
unmute
unmute and ask your question.
Oh, yeah. Jai Bhim, Dr. Sairam. This is Valay.
Hi.
So
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me, right? I've connected my
Yeah.
headphones. So, okay. So there's this saying, right? Like a chain is only as strong as the weakest link. I think that also applies to society in general and nations in general, right? Like how good are the people who are at the bottom? How are they living? So my question is, we also discussed governmental institutions like the executive and the judiciary. My question is, do you think that there's a lack of representation of our community within those institutions?
Yeah. Should I answer? Like,
Yeah, because
yeah, sure.
like, let's say we have
Yeah.
more representation, right? So will that help us in the upliftment of the people within our community? And what do you, if there is a lack of representation, what do you think the reasons are, and what can we do to tackle those challenges?
It's a
I
very
think
complex
you are
question, but I'll try to answer it in a very crisp manner.
yeah.
So first of all,
Yeah.
there are two things to it. Are we represented enough in these positions of power? The answer is no. Because in judiciary, there's complete lack of diversity. It's an open fact admitted by Honorable Chief Justice of India himself recently. And if you find the executive, same thing is self-evident. And I think there are some series of articles carried out by the newspaper Hindustan Times recently, I think 1 month back, where they have shared the data of all the Council of Ministers across the different states, right from 1950 to 2014 or 18. And they found that the percentage share of representation of our community in general is abysmally low. It's not low, it's not just low, it's abysmally low. So naturally, when there is no representation, first of all, what is politics or these institutions? In one line, Babasaheb says that politics, executive or judiciary, are those institutions where your will is transformed into action. So if these positions of power are occupied those people who have the will to do common good, then the country will prosper. But if the people who occupy these powerful positions have this ill will, the country will, collapse. So that is why it's very important to have this representation of all these sections, not just scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, backward classes, women, so that it becomes more vibrant. And secondly, we talk about representation, but we also know the fact that Kancharap Sahib has actually written a book, Chamcha Age or Chamcha Yug. So on one hand, we want representation. On the other hand, we also don't want those representatives who are detrimental to our progress. So this brings us to a very important question. What is representation? What are the ideal characteristics that a representative should have? I don't want to discuss in very detail, it takes so much of time, but if you have observed in my presentation, we discussed about the real meaning of education. So if our representative has that knowledge, if that person, he or she is equipped with that knowledge where they can do justice, then only representation will work. Otherwise, in fact, even in Pune Pact, even in today's arrangement of the electorate system, we still have reservation in namesake, I mean representation in namesake. But are these people really representative? So these are the two aspects that we need to think. What is our share, and are they really representatives? So that's what I wanted to answer. I don't know if I have answered it coherently, but yes, our representation in all walks of life, not just in judiciary, executive, everywhere. If you take the corporate sector, it's even worse. So everywhere, it's completely low levels of, abysmally low levels of representation. And that is why the entire power structure is tilted towards the privileged, and we are left with tyranny and oppression. So yeah.
Oh, okay. I mean,
Mo-
for representation, like okay. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, have a
movies,
good night,
movies.
everyone.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks to all who have participated. I think we should now wrap up, right?
We missed
Sairam?
the movies. We missed the movies.
Yeah.
That's thank you. So, can anyone guess how many movies did Dr. Ambedkar watch in his lifetime? Any guess? Probably one movie. No, that's a wrong answer. Uncle Tom's Cabin. Okay, one. Okay, maybe it's time for me to share the relevant picture. Just give me a second. So, I hope I can share my PPT once again so that are you able to see this picture?
Yep. We can see it.
Okay, super. So these are the movies that Dr. Ambedkar watched in his lifetime. So total there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 movies, and there's also one more movie called as Birth of the Baby. So totally 7 movies so far. जो भी information मैंने collect किया है, we get a list of 7 movies. The number could be even more, but I personally can guess that it is not more than 20. It's definitely less than 20. So these are the different movies that Dr. Ambedkar watched. And as someone rightly guessed, Uncle Tom's Cabin is one of the movies. And this movie he saw with Dr. Savitrimai Ambedkar. And this movie, Oliver Twist, which was released, I think, in 1917. So he saw this movie with Ramabai. So I think this is one of those only movies which Dr. Ambedkar and Ramabai went and saw in the theater. And this second is called as second movie is called Dharmatma. I think it was released in 1935, directed by V. Shantaram. He's also a very close friend of Dr. Ambedkar. And this person, I think you might recognize him. He's called Bal Gandharva. He's a very popular singer and theater performer of Maharashtra. In fact, it was Shahu Maharaj who encouraged this person. And yes, so first is Oliver Twist, second is Dharmatma, released in 35, directed by V. Shantaram. And third is also again this movie called as Kunku, Kunku. It's a Marathi movie directed by V. Shantaram, acted by Shanta Apte, very popular Marathi actress of that time, known very well for her fight to have equal payment for equal work between men and women in the film industry. So this movie Babasaheb saw in 1937, and he mentions it in one of his letters that he wrote to Dr. Savitrimai Ambedkar. So he says, "Did you see the movie Kunku? Because that movie depicts how marriages fail. If marriages do not work, women and men both are going to get suffered. Kunku movie will depict the case of woman who gets suffered at the hands of the evil husband. So this is the third movie. Fourth, of course, this famous movie called Achut Kanya, released in 1936, if I'm not wrong, starring the popular Devika Rani, very, very popular actress. And you know that she's also one of the co-founders of Bombay Talkies. And the craze of Devika Rani is completely unimaginable. People nowadays are saying that, some of our movies are, seen by Hollywood people. But we have to read the book called as the title sounds very strange. It's called Longest Kiss. It was written on Devika Rani. If you read that book, you'll get surprised that whenever a movie of Devika Rani was released in London, huge number of London business magnates and industrialists used to gather at the theater to see her movie. So that was a popularity. I think no one has that popularity even today. And this movie also stars Ashok Kumar for the first time. He made his debut. I think you might be knowing Ashok Kumar is the brother of the popular singer Kishore Kumar. So this is the fourth movie. Fifth movie is, of course, Uncle Tom's Cabin, based on the novel written during the Civil War, American Civil War. And finally, Mahatma Phule, हमने presentation में देखा था, released in 1954, directed by P.K. Atre, won the best, I think, state award for that year. So yes, these are the movies this watched by Babasaheb, and I can do so much of information about it, and also movie stars and directors who met Babasaheb. Maybe if audience and the listeners are interested, we can have a separate session. Depends on BAW's team and the curiosity of our listeners. We can have a separate session on that where I'll tell you complete details of movie stars who met Babasaheb. Like for example, Dilip Kumar met Babasaheb. हमको पता है, लेकिन what did Dilip Kumar say about that meeting? हमारे पास information. And Raj Kapoor met Babasaheb. In fact, there is. I know I'm taking some time, but please, it's okay. Bear with me. So there's a very popular Parsi restaurant in Bombay called as Wayside Inn. Now it is closed. So Raj Kapoor used to visit that, Parsi Inn frequently and used to sit at a particular table every time he goes there. So one of his friends asked him, Ki, Raj Sahab, why do you sit always in this same spot daily? So Raj Kapoor said, there is the same spot where Dr. Ambedkar used to drink his coffee while drafting the constitution. So I come here and sit at this place to draw inspiration from that great man. ऐसे बहुत सारे interesting stories है. So the movie stars who met Dr. Ambedkar and shared a very good bond. So maybe we can have a separate session discussing each and every detail. Thank you so much, Prashant Bhai, for reminding this important thing. I forgot actually. Thank you.
Anil bhai has a question.
No, I don't have the question. When he said kunku, that means Varmilan in English. So just wanted to add that. That's all.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So do we have any questions?
Go ahead, Saurabh.
Hello, Dr. Sairam.
Hi, hello.
Yeah, actually, you mentioned about Acharya Atre in the presentation. See, belonging from the Marathi background, I have been hearing about Acharya Atre since childhood, and most of the times I have been hearing his name only from Savarnas and not from the Bahujan background people in Maharashtra itself. Means, it's very rare. It's very, very rare. So, have you checked that is Acharya Atre, whatever he has presented, is like that much trustable, and Baba Sahib literally means gave that, means he endorsed his art, what Acharya Atre has expressed in his art. Did that happen, or it was like it is better than nothing? Means what was the, means how you think what Baba Sahib actually reacted to that?
Yeah, sure. So first of all, I'm not from Maharashtra, so I cannot comment with certainty. And so first of all, initially P.K. Atre was, he used to write satirical articles on Dr. Ambedkar. That's how the relationship began. So when Dr. Ambedkar declared his intent to convert to any other religion in 1935 in Yellow Conference, Prahlad Keshwatre or P.K. Atre used to write satirical articles about conversion. But we don't know what happened. But by 1940s, he became one of the friends of Dr. Ambedkar. And yes, Dr. Ambedkar did appreciate his heart. And as we saw in the presentation, he saw the movie of Jotiba and etc. So second thing is, I don't know why people may not celebrate him, but I know this could be the reason. Because if you read the speeches given by Atre in 56 after the death of Babasaheb and 57, I've got some of those speeches. He has actually distorted the messages of Babasaheb in those speeches. So, for instance, when Babasaheb passed away, he gave a speech, I think in 57. He said that, Dr. Ambedkar would not have converted to Buddhism if Hindu Code Bill was passed. This is a lie. Whether Hindu Code Bill was passed or not, Dr. Ambedkar has already declared or decided, rather, that he will convert. So ऐसा बहुत सारे lies पीके अत्रे ने बोला था बहुत सारे लोगों को. Maybe that is one of the reasons why people from Maharashtra do not actually talk much about it. So that's what I feel. I don't know. I can't claim authority on this topic, but his speeches are definitely been problematic. He has distorted the message and essence of Dr. Ambedkar. So I think one of my friends wrote that he's from Brahmin community, but I don't think there's some Brahmin community. He's from that community called as CKP. I think so, Chandra and Caste Prabhu, if I'm not wrong. So he's from that community. And yes, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
I think we don't have any more questions. We should conclude. Any last questions, anybody? Okay, great. Since we have no more questions, we'll stop here. Thanks a lot, Dr. Sairam, and you've been speaking for almost 3 hours. I hope you get some good rest, you get some water, you had some dinner. Folks who are still on the call with us, we will post the recording of this lecture on our YouTube channel by tomorrow. Thank you, everybody. Jai Bhim.